teleport away, so he was no longer afraid of exposing his identity. Furthermore, he didn't believe that Jai Tianyu would turn hostile because of this. It wouldn't do her any good. In fact, it might create an unimaginable powerful enemy. Why bother? You obtained the legacy of the 9 ancestors of the blood dragon. Jai Tianyu's expression remained calm, but her words were even more surprising. Did Yinyu tell you? Gu Qijue said indifferently. Oh, that girl Yinyu knows too? It seems I underestimated the relationship between you two. Jai Tianyu was a little surprised and said, Can you let me see the flood dragon evolution method? Take it? Gu Qijue was very straightforward. He drew a legacy soul light from his glabella. This was an evolution method modified by the infinite engine. If Jai Tianyu was tempted to seize him for dual cultivation, Gu Qijue could gain more benefits as she was a demon emperor. Since his identity couldn't be hidden, why not be more open? Jai Tianyu was cautious, first sending a wisp of her demonic consciousness to investigate. After confirming there were no problems, she fully immersed herself in observing it. A moment later, she finished reading. Her expression was somewhat complex as she said, This evolution method is truly marvelous. What a pity. Have you and Yinyu already cultivated? Gu Qijue took a sip of tea and said calmly, I haven't given it to her yet. I am currently at the 3rd stage of Demon Emperor, which is the peak. Because my life essence is insufficient, I cannot advance further. If I can transform into a flood dragon, I will surely reach the peak. Jai Tianyu's beautiful eyes quietly looked at Gu Qijue. Please, you must help me. You want to dual cultivate with me? Although Gu Qijue asked this, he wasn't surprised. The pursuit of ultimate power is the instinct of all intelligent beings. How could this woman refuse? Why? Am I not worthy of dual cultivation with you? You should know about my Tianyu Python clan. Reproduction is done through a special secret technique, unlike other races. As a 3rd stage demon emperor, she didn't actually need to explain so much and could have directly forced Gu Qijue to dual cultivate with her, but she didn't. My pleasure. But I won't be responsible for you. I won't ask you to be responsible. Consider it cultivation. All right. Let's go. Gu Qijue had his own calculations. Dual cultivating with a demon emperor might help him refine the blood dragon pearl in his body faster. Now that they were about to attack the Shenhuang continent, an extra bit of strength meant an extra layer of assurance. Following Jai Tianyu, Gu Qijue arrived at her sleeping chambers. I'll bathe first. Even Jai Tianyu, who had lived for tens of thousands of years, was a little nervous as she entered the bathing room for the first time doing such a thing. Why not be frank with each other first? Gu Qijue smiled faintly and followed her in. Here, 10,000 words are omitted. What are he and old ancestor chatting about? It's been over 3 hours. Why haven't they come out yet? Jai Yinyu had been waiting outside the old ancestor's residence, planning to discuss with Gu Qijue when to attack the Great Yan dynasty or the Medicine King Valley once he came out. Could it be that he used the wormhole teleportation to return to the infinite group base? After waiting another half an hour, Jai Yinyu muttered and headed to the infinite group base. CEO Jai, hello, our boss hasn't returned yet. Nangong Wanner was receiving her. Looking very puzzled, wasn't the boss invited by them? Why was she looking for him here? He hasn't returned yet. Jai Yinyu's eyes flashed. And she was shocked. Could it be that old ancestor knew his identity and suppressed him? Thinking of this, she turned around and quickly left without another word. Apologies, CEO Jai. The sovereign is in seclusion. Jai Yinyu rushed anxiously to meet the old ancestor, but was stopped by Jai Tianyu's 2 trusted aides. These 2 were both at the peak of Demon Saint. Seclusion? What about CEO Xing? Has he come out? Jai Yinyu had a bad premonition and spoke with some urgency. The left attendant said, CEO Xing is in seclusion with the sovereign. Boom, hearing this, Jai Yinyu's mind buzzed. The worst thing she feared had still happened. What should I do? Jai Yinyu's face was pale, and she didn't even know how she got back to the group's base. Although she was very worried, what could she do? Contradict the old ancestor? She wouldn't dare. Therefore, she could only hope that the old ancestor wouldn't be too excessive and would give Gu Qijue a way out. Currently, various groups are dispatching their own powerhouses and war robots to station in the Tianheng domain. 2 days later, Nangong Wanner visited Jai Yinyu. Her first words upon entering were, CEO Jai, where is our boss? He is currently discussing some cultivation insights with our old ancestor. Don't worry. You've come at a good time. Are the Infinite Group's mercenaries and war robots in place? My plan is to directly launch an invasion against the Great Yan dynasty in a week. Jai Yinyu placed a battle plan in front of Nangong Wanner and said, We will split into 2 routes. The Infinite Group will attack through Tiania Pass, and my Tianyue group will directly advance through Tianhuang Pass, striving to completely conquer the Great Yan dynasty within half a month. Nangong Wanner looked at the battle plan in her hand, nodded, and said, "That's no problem. My infinite group's 1 million mercenaries and 3 million war robots will all be stationed in the Tianheng domain in 2 days." With the heavenly Tao will of the Tianheng domain suppressed, there was no longer any issue with technology products being unusable. Large quantities of highly destructive technological weapons from various groups were being transported in, batch after batch. Facing such convenient technological weapons that could kill Emperor-grade and Saint-grade cultivators, how could the Tianheng domain resist? Jai Yinyu smiled. The Great Yan dynasty is just an appetizer. Our real target is the Medicine King Valley. As long as we can take down the Medicine King Valley, we will be able to monopolize the potion market in the future. See you next year. Please give me some monthly votes, 85. I want not only the method of evolution, I also want you. Time flew by and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Outside the Alliance base, a cute little beast arrived. It had grown to the size of a cat. Its small paws scratched its head because it couldn't get in. Isn't that the master's former subordinate? With a whoosh, Xiao Yao pounced over. On this day, Gu Qijue finally emerged from Jai Tianyu's residence. "Farewell, CEO Xing." The 2 female attendants waiting outside saluted him. Upstairs in the bedchamber by the window, Jai Tianyu held a glass of red wine, wearing an extremely refreshing nightgown, and watched Gu Qijue leave. For 5 days straight, they spent their time in dual cultivation. Jai Tianyu could clearly feel the changes in her bloodline. Furthermore, it was the first time in her life she had experienced such pleasure. Although she really wanted to evolve, if it wasn't someone who could enter her Dharma eye, she would never give up her body for the sake of evolution. Although she and Gu Qijue were far apart in age, Gu Qijue was the first man she had ever met in her life for whom she felt a slight fondness. She wondered how many more times she would have to dual cultivate with him before she could evolve into a flood dragon. This made her a little worried, afraid of falling under this man's offensive. Gu Qijue didn't think so much. The benefits he gained from these 5 days of dual cultivation were far greater than Jai Tianyu's. His 5th blood dragon pearl was also refined into his black dragon pearl. He had advanced to Demon Saint Stage 3. He wasn't afraid of being laughed at for saying it. It was Gu Qijue's first time experiencing a woman's taste. The Alliance base was currently very lively. Military weapons, powerhouses, and war robots from various groups were being transported in batch after batch. When Gu Qijue returned to the Infinite Group's base office, Nangong Wanner immediately went to see him. "Boss, the Infinite Group's 1 million mercenaries and 3 million war robots are all ready. We have an appointment with the Tianyue Group to attack the Great Yan dynasty in 5 days. Inside the office, Nangong Wanner presented a list of the Infinite Group's current overall strength. Gu Qijue took the list and read it, saying, "Recently, have those overlord groups started making moves?" Nangong Wanner replied, "At this stage, all major groups are transmitting powerhouses, war robots, and large-scale technological weapons to the Alliance base. No group has truly made a move yet. Then we're not in a hurry. Let them make the first move, so that those 3 overlord forces don't come to support them when we attack the Great Yan dynasty." Gu Qijue looked at the list in his hand and nodded. "It's developing very well. Among the group's mercenary powerhouses, there are already 6 half-saints. Unfortunately, no saint grade has joined," Nangong Wanner said with a bitter smile. "It's all right, we'll cultivate them." Gu Qijue put down the list, looked at Nangong Wanner, and said calmly, "Where's that little girl Lanzai? Is she doing well at Emperor Academy? Has the Heavenly Court group of the cultivation continent ever troubled her? They originally wanted to, but after learning she was your sister, they dropped the matter." Nangong Wanner nodded and said, "Today, Emperor Academy is organizing a group of prodigies to come and participate in battles for experience with these large groups. Young Miss should also be returning." "Brother, are you there? Speak of the devil." Lanzai's boisterous voice came from outside the door at this moment. Gu Qijue said, "Come in," as his voice fell. Not only Lanzai, but also several other people entered from outside the door. Gu Qijue saw who they were: Jai Sheng, Mu Yuxin, Cute Treasure, Ape Emperor. Beside Jai Sheng, there was also a woman Gu Qijue didn't recognize, and their relationship seemed very good. "Brother, I've come to see you." Lanzai entered, paused slightly upon seeing Gu Qijue in his ancient costume, then skipped behind him and dutifully massaged his shoulders. "Who are they?" Gu Qijue's gaze fell on Jai Sheng and the others, and he asked knowingly. He could expose his identity to Jai Yinyu and Jai Tianyu, because no one dared to search their souls. Jai Tianyu, for the sake of benefit and the advantages Gu Qijue could bring them, had no reason to betray him. Emperor Academy Jai Shang, Emperor Academy. Cute Treasure, Emperor Academy Ape Emperor. Emperor Academy Mu Yuxin, Emperor Academy Yunzai. Greetings, CEO Xing. They stepped forward and bowed slightly to Gu Qijue. Lanzai said very seriously, brother. Our team wants to join the Infinite Group for battle experience. This experience is very important. The top 100 in military merits will become the most dazzling chief disciples of Emperor Academy, surpassing all other students, and will be able to freely enjoy the Academy's resources. Gu Qijue nodded slightly. Is that so? Then you can join the Infinite Group's expedition. The battlefield will be chaotic, so make sure to protect yourselves. Thank you, brother. Lanzai looked at Jai Shang and said, Captain, didn't you say you had something to talk to my brother about? You can say it now. After seeing CEO Xing, there's no problem. Jai Shang shook his head with a bitter smile. When he came, he still doubted Gu Qijue's identity. He originally thought that if he came here and Gu Qijue was truly their boss, he would definitely acknowledge them, but now it seemed they had overthought it. This made Jai Shang a little disappointed, and he said, We won't disturb CEO Xing's business. Is that so? All right then, brother. You go ahead and be busy. We'll go register first. Gu Qijue watched them leave expressionlessly, then said to Nangong Wanner, Take good care of them. Let them enter the super training base once recently, but don't make it too obvious. Okay, next I'll report on work matters. Recently, we've developed several life planets. Nangong Wanner spoke a lot about the group's recent developments. For example, developing life planets, expanding business beyond Emperor Star, and so on. By the time she left, an hour had passed. Not long after she left, Jai Yinyu came knocking. After entering the office, she looked Gu Qijue up and down and said, CEO Xing. You weren't drained dry by old ancestor, were you? Gu Qijue smiled faintly. Am I not perfectly fine? The evolution method has been modified by me and that drawback no longer exists. After the revision, I can gain greater benefits. What? Jai Yinyu was stunned for a moment upon hearing this, then bit her jade lip and said, Then you lied to me, secretly dual cultivating with old ancestor. What? Is our friendship not even as good as your brief encounter with old ancestor? And you even cultivated for 5 days and 5 nights. She was truly speechless. She had been worried recently that he would be drained dry by old ancestor. Turns out, he and old ancestor were having a blast, forgetting themselves, immersed in that kind of cultivation that was neither boring nor, well, you know, in front of your old ancestor. I temporarily didn't have the strength to refuse. Since you also want it, here's the evolution method for you. As Gu Qijue spoke, he drew out a legacy soul light and gave it to her. No, I don't just want the evolution method, I want you too, Jai Yinyu said boldly. With old ancestor having gotten there first, she was anxious. 86, Xiao Yao came looking for him. Alliance base. Infinite group base room. This massive base room was like a castle, occupying an unknown number of miles. It could accommodate 1 million mercenaries and 3 million war robots, which gives an idea of how magnificent this base was. Woman, quickly take me to find Master. I can feel he's not far from me. Inside a combat room within the base, Bai Jingyi held a small, cat-sized beast that kept clamoring to see its master. Who is your master? Only Bai Jingyi was here. Everyone else was touring the base room. As Bai Jingyi's evolution level increased, she also became younger. You don't know who my master is? Are you kidding? Of course it's your boss. Xiao Yao jumped onto the table, looking at Bai Jingyi with a cute, innocent expression. Completely speechless. What did you say? CEO Gu isn't dead? Hearing this, Bai Jingyi immediately became energetic, looking excitedly at the cute little beast on the table. What's going on? Master isn't dead. And you guys didn't know? Xiao Yao was stunned. Quickly, show us the way, we're going to see CEO Gu. Bai Jingyi eagerly picked up Xiao Yao, unable to hide the excitement in her heart, urging it to quickly point the way. Let's go. Leaving the combat room, Xiao Yao pointed its paw towards the central building inside the base room and said, I can sense that Master is on the top floor of that building. Bai Jingyi followed its paw with her gaze, her beautiful eyes shining brightly as she asked, Are you sure? The top floor of the central building. Looking across the infinite group, those who could work there were few and far between. Let's go. Don't dawdle, Xiao Yao urged. Okay. Bai Jingyi took a deep breath and quickly walked toward the central building, entering the central building lobby and stepping into the elevator. Bai Jingyi pressed the button for the top floor. Ding, you do not have permission to access the top floor of the central building. The elevator screen scanned and a cold electronic voice sounded. Helpless. Bai Jingyi carried Xiao Yao out of the elevator and approached the counter, saying to the receptionist inside, "Hello. I have an urgent matter and need to see your CEO Xing. This is extremely important. Please inform the management." "All right, I can only help you report it. But whether CEO Xing grants the audience depends on your luck." The young Miss Receptionist inside did not make things difficult for her but agreed to report the matter. This required layer upon layer of review and notification. Meeting the boss of a large corporation was not easy. One might be ignored halfway through the process. Minister Lai Kong. "Hello." Just then a tall, imposing, middle-aged man strode in from outside the building. Seeing this, the young Miss Receptionist present all spoke up to greet him. "He said the boss is back. Is he available now?" Lai Kongwu inquired. The young Miss Receptionist respectfully replied, "The boss is back. But the president of the Tianyue Group arrived just now and should be discussing something with CEO Xing." "Understood." Lai Kongwu nodded and entered the elevator. Seeing this, Bai Jingyi quickly followed him in and politely said to Lai Kongwu, "Hello. I am an old friend of CEO Xing. Could you possibly take me to see CEO Xing? Thank you." An old friend of CEO Xing? Lai Kongwu glanced at her, suspicion flashing in his eyes. Could such a minor Earth demon, Heaven Marshal level, really be an old friend of CEO Xing? "Kid, who are you looking down on?" It was so difficult just to see its master, which displeased Xiao Yao, who then revealed a trace of Saint Will. Lai Kongwu's heart immediately tightened. He took a deep look at Xiao Yao and Bai Jingyi and said, "My mistake. Let's go see CEO Xing together then." With that, he pressed the top floor button. Upon reaching the top floor, Lai Kongwu led Bai Jingyi to wait in the presidential guest waiting hall. "Master is right in that office. Why aren't we going straight in?" Xiao Yao pointed unhappily at the president's office. Seeing it point to the president's office, Bai Jingyi's heart trembled slightly. Since the small beast in her arms recognized her, it must have come from the same place as her. Moreover, when she mentioned CEO Gu earlier, the small beast did not refute it, which already indicated that the person inside that office was Gu Qijue. "The boss is currently talking with the president of the Tianyue Group. Let's wait," Lai Kongwu said, highly wary of the small beast in Bai Jingyi's arms. But this wait lasted for several hours. Only then did Jai Yinyu emerge from inside. A satisfied smile hung on her face. "Let's go." Seeing this, Lai Kongwu finally led them over. He knocked on the door and asked, "Boss, are you available?" "Enter." A moment later, Gu Qijue's deeply magnetic voice came out. Hearing the command, Lai Kongwu dared to push the door open and enter. Bai Jingyi followed behind. In front of the desk, Gu Qijue had removed his ancient attire and long hair. He wore a specially tailored black suit, and his white hair, parted 3/7, reached his eyes. "Ow, master, we finally meet again." With a whoosh, Xiao Yao bolted from Bai Jingyi's arms straight toward Gu Qijue. Seeing this, Gu Qijue raised his hand, grabbed the tuft of hair on its head, flicked its head lightly, and smiled faintly. "The moment you entered the Infinite Group's base room, I knew you had arrived. Not bad, you've reached Demon Saint 2nd rank." "Master, you're still the most amazing. You've reached Demon Saint 3rd rank. If you hadn't devoured me back then, I definitely wouldn't have reached your level. We truly achieved greatness together." Xiao Yao happily jumped onto Gu Qijue's shoulder. What it said was actually correct. Theoretically, Gu Qijue was not as simple as just a black dragon. He was completely an anomaly. His life level had long surpassed that of a true black dragon. Even the strongest black dragon could, at most, achieve demigod status, but Gu Qijue's potential was far greater than that. CEO, Gu, Bai Jingyi, standing not far away, had slightly red eyes and stared blankly at Gu Qijue. "We'll talk about our matters later." Gu Qijue glanced at her, then his gaze fell upon Lai Kongwu, saying, "Minister Lai Kong, is there something you need?" "Boss. I caused trouble. I accidentally killed a demigod from the Alliance," Lai Kongwu said bitterly. Gu Qijue lowered his gaze slightly and said calmly, "If you killed him, you killed him. If his skill was inferior, he deserved to die. I'd like to see if the Alliance has the nerve to pursue accountability." Lai Kongwu bowed and said, "Thank you, boss. If the Alliance refuses to let this go, I am willing to pay with my life." "Rest assured completely. You are now a demigod. Take this demon power crystal. It has a 30% chance of allowing you to advance to Demon Saint without side effects." Gu Qijue casually tossed him one of his own demonic power nuclei and said, "You may leave." Hearing this, Lai Kongwu accepted the demonic power nucleus and bowed deeply to Gu Qijue with excitement, saying, "Thank you, boss." Then he exited the office. Gu Qijue looked at Bai Jingyi, who was already overcome with emotion, and smiled faintly. "Long time no see." CEO Gu, you never acknowledged us. Did you have any concerns? Bai Jingyi gazed at Gu Qijue, who seemed both strange and familiar. Gu Qijue nodded slightly. I did have some concerns. Your memories were viewed by 3 old undying members of the Alliance, and I couldn't take the risk. Since you already know my identity, stay here and be my secretary. I will request staff from Emperor Academy later. For now, don't tell Jai Shang and the others about this. MHM, after knowing it was CEO Gu, I didn't want to go back anyway. I wasn't highly valued at Emperor Academy, so there shouldn't be any issues. Hearing that Gu Qijue wanted to keep her as his secretary, the stone hanging in Bai Jingyi's heart finally dropped. She had truly been afraid he would make her leave. 87, are you threatening me? Bai Jingyi knew his identity. So how could Gu Qijue let her leave? He immediately asked her to stay, as he happened to need a secretary. But before Gu Qijue could request her from Emperor Academy, a report came from below. 2 elders from the Alliance had arrived and wished to see him. Have they come to demand an explanation so quickly? Upon receiving the report, Gu Qijue had them invited up. Not long after, a middle-aged woman and a middle-aged man walked into the office, their faces stern. CEO Xing, we have come here today. I presume you are aware of the reason? As soon as they came up, they questioned Gu Qijue. Gu Qijue scrutinized them and said indifferently, I'm sorry, I don't know why you've come. Your group, without cause, killed an Alliance elder. CEO Xing, you couldn't possibly not know, could you? If that's truly the case, then you are a complete failure as a boss. The middle-aged woman said coldly, Oh, that I do know. The Alliance elder brought it upon himself and was killed because he was inferior. Does your Alliance have the nerve to demand an explanation? Gu Qijue looked up, full of disdain. At them, is CEO Xing trying to protect the murderer? A dangerous glint appeared in the middle-aged man's eyes. What if I am? Gu Qijue's expression turned cold. The middle-aged woman sneered, Good. What a CEO Xing, I'll say it right here. If CEO Xing doesn't hand over the murderer, the Infinite Group will definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Are you threatening me? A flash of killing intent flickered in Gu Qijue's eyes. You can interpret it that way. The Alliance elder said you had a problem. So you have a problem. Attacking you was to apprehend you for questioning. The murderer not only dared to fight back, but also publicly killed an Alliance elder. CEO Xing, do you think you can cover this up? The middle-aged man's attitude was very aggressive. Today, our Alliance declares that if you do not hand over the murderer, your Infinite Group can forget about attacking the Great Yan dynasty. The Alliance will take your place. This is the price. The middle-aged woman's eyes gleamed sharply. So the fox's tail is finally showing? Gu Qijue listened to her words, his eyes turning extremely cold, revealing a hint of mockery. He said, Everyone says the Alliance acts with fairness and justice, that it is the central hub for maintaining order on Emperor Star. I never thought it would resort to such despicable tactics. It truly opens my eyes, CEO Xing. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, CEO Xing. Making such baseless accusations without evidence is slander. Gu Qijue's expression was cold as he spoke indifferently. Does your Alliance truly intend to treat my Infinite Group this way? The middle-aged woman said coldly. It's not against your Infinite Group. As long as you hand over the murderer, everyone will be happy. Good, very good, you even dare to extort my Infinite Group. Gu Qijue smiled, a very sinister smile, immediately after. A terrifying, heaven-shaking saint's will, like that of an emperor dominating all living beings, erupted from Gu Qijue's body with a roar. In an instant, it penetrated the entire Infinite Group base and swept out like a raging tide. In a flash, it swept across the entire Alliance base. This saint's will was overbearing, powerful, majestic, sinister, violent, and supreme, as if it were the only one in the world. Hiss, what a terrifying saint's will, even my half-emperor will can't compare. Which senior is unleashing such power? Thump thump, below the saint realm under the sweep of this saint's will. All collapsed to the ground. Even saints felt their hearts tremble with fear. Even half-emperors felt some pressure. Various powerhouses looked towards the source of the will. Upon discovering it was the Infinite Group, they were once again shocked. Saint-level beings broke through the air, flying towards the Infinite Group base. All wanting to see what had happened, they also wanted to know who the owner of this will was. What's going on? Who provoked that jinx? In Jai Tianyu's palace, she was familiarizing herself with the newly added bloodline in her body. Feeling this familiar will, she got up and changed her clothes, wanting to see who dared to bully her. Man, boom, little did she know. It was her man who was bullying others. Accompanied by a loud bang, the Infinite Group base suddenly exploded, leaving a huge opening. Whoosh whoosh, then, two figures, ravaged by lightning and half-dead, crashed to the ground, twitching and spitting blood. Aren't these Elder Ruizayo and Elder Tunyue of the Alliance? They are both Saint 7th stage. How could they be beaten into such a state? Hiss, saints are so hard to kill. Yet they've lost more than half their lives. Looking at the lightning on their bodies, it seems to be continuously destroying and devouring the life force of the two elders. Boom! Just as the arriving saints were discussing in shock after seeing who was in the pit, with a sudden roar. Gu Qijue, utterly domineering, his body flashing with black lightning, appeared above the two deep pits. What kind of trash dares to extort my infinite group? Gu Qijue looked at the two half-dead individuals in the pit, spitting blood and full of terror. And with a flick of his finger, pointed at them, two terrifying lightning finger beams pierced through the air. Bang! But just as those two lightning finger beams were about to completely obliterate the two people in the pit, a figure suddenly blocked their path, with a raised hand. He wiped away the two finger beams. The figure who appeared in the pit was an old man, his blood surging, as if a furnace capable of burning the sky and boiling the sea lay dormant within him. CEO Zing, your hostility is too great. The old man frowned slightly, looking at Gu Qijue with some displeasure. And who are you? Gu Qijue lowered his gaze, looking down at the old man in the pit with a condescending view. The old man said faintly, "This old man is one of the 12 Grand Elders of the Alliance. You can call me Old Yin. Why were your methods so vicious? I should be asking you that. Here's the recording, see for yourselves." Gu Qijue snorted coldly, revealing the scene of how those two had just threatened him. After watching this video projection, anyone with a brain could guess the situation. Is this your so-called fair and just alliance? Gu Qijue showed a hint of mockery and smiled faintly. It truly is an eye-opener. Old Yin's face fluctuated between shades after watching, secretly cursing the two fools at his feet. Could such a thing be said so arrogantly? Shouldn't it have been more subtle? More of an insinuation? Today, if the Alliance doesn't provide an explanation, my infinite group will cease providing any elixirs to the Alliance from now on. Gu Qijue's eyes were piercing, his expression cold. With a boom, he used his own will to communicate with the Emperor Star Will here, and his aura surged, rapidly increasing to the peak of the Demon Saint realm, and then to Half-Emperor. What's going on? Hiss, he can communicate with and resonate with the Emperor Star Will? My heavens, even the 3 old ancestors of the Alliance can't do that. Seeing this, all the saints present widened their eyes, their jaws nearly dropping to the ground. Ever since breaking through to the Demon Saint realm and the Emperor Star Will descended, Gu Qijue had felt that the Emperor Star Will was very friendly towards him, and he could communicate with it at any time to summon its power. Otherwise, how could he have so calmly revealed his identity in front of Jai Tianyu? And how could he have dared to arrogantly claim to devour the great Yan dynasty alone in the previous meeting? This was the source of his confidence. Gu Qijue felt that if he resonated with the Emperor Star Will here without regard for the consequences, he could temporarily advance to the Demon Emperor realm. Keep up the hard work in 2024, all the best. A new month has begun. For those who have opened a membership, you all have a free monthly pass. Could you cast it for me? Thank you 88, I am the heavens and the heavens are me. CEO Zing, you. Elder Yin was so shocked he couldn't speak. He was a powerhouse among half-emperors, infinitely close to the emperor level. But under the terrifying display of power shown by Gu Qijue resonating with the Emperor Star Will, he felt a chill run down his spine. Was this matter orchestrated by you? Boom! As Gu Qijue's cold and majestic voice fell, a vast, immense, and terrifying power erupted, resonating with the Emperor Star Will of this place. Gu Qijue, who appeared not far from the crowd, seemed to be the incarnation of the Emperor Star's heaven and earth, giving everyone a terrifying pressure as if the sky were collapsing. Before him, all beings on the Emperor Star seemed like mere ants. Even saints, or powerhouses of the Alliance's 12 Grand Elders level like Elder Yin, seemed like nothing more than vulnerable targets, easily crushed. This terrifying, earth-shattering, and world-shaking display of power instantly attracted, or rather, alarmed all the powerhouses at the Alliance base. Swish, swish, swish. Figures either shot up into the sky or materialized out of thin air, then countless gazes were directed toward the source of that mighty power. After just one look, all the Alliance powerhouses were completely stunned. Hiss! Upon realizing that the owner of the Infinite Group had resonated with the Emperor Star Will, many people couldn't help but gasp in shock. The tycoons who previously harbored grudges against the Infinite Group for taking a slice of their pie now felt their pupils contract in extreme horror. Everyone was dumbfounded and speechless. watching Gu Qijue with utter disbelief. It wasn't that they lacked experience, nor was their shock unwarranted, because in the history of the Emperor Star, no sentient being had ever been able to achieve this step. When they looked at Gu Qijue, he clearly exuded the great terror of "I am heaven, heaven is me." These powerhouses, who were usually high and mighty, seemed insignificant and vulnerable before the current Gu Qijue. If even those watching from afar felt this way, what kind of pressure must Elder Yin, who was facing Gu Qijue directly, be enduring? Others couldn't imagine Elder Yin's true feelings. An incessant urge to kneel down and worship Gu Qijue surged within him. What he wanted to worship, of course, wasn't Gu Qijue, but the Emperor Star Will. But now that Gu Qijue was highly resonating with the Emperor Star Will, he was the spokesman for the Emperor Star Will. After all, Elder Yin was one of the Alliance's Grand Elders, and at this moment, he ultimately did not perform any acts of worship. After repeated contemplation, he could only yield. Elder Yin looked at the two half-dead saints on the ground and said, "The Emperor Star is currently engaged in an all-out war with the Tianheng domain, and saints are crucial combat forces for the Alliance. CEO Xing, this matter has nothing to do with me. These two violated the operational guidelines of the Alliance base, acted unfairly in their duties, and severely betrayed the Alliance base's original intent of fairness and justice. Based on this alone, it wouldn't be wrong for this old man to kill them in front of CEO Xing to clean house." However, as this old man just mentioned, the Emperor Star is currently locked in a major battle with the Tianheng domain. Every saint should die on the battlefield, not at the hands of their own people. CEO Xing, if you take back the lightning on them, I will order them both to fight and redeem themselves on the front lines of the battlefield. How does that sound? Of course. The Alliance base will provide appropriate compensation for the losses these two caused to CEO Xing and the Infinite Group. Elder Yin's words showed an extremely humble posture. If it were in the past, the situation would definitely be reversed. In front of the Alliance base, many large groups were actually just chess pieces of varying importance and could even become discarded pieces at any moment. Today, however, was different. After Gu Qijue resonated with the Emperor Star Will, he successfully jumped off the chessboard and became one of the Emperor Star's players. Because he could resonate with the Emperor Star Will, he even surpassed all other Emperor Star players. Otherwise, how could Elder Yin be so accommodating? He would surely have demanded a full explanation from Gu Qijue today. After listening to Elder Yin, Gu Qijue revealed a cold smile. The lightning on them was merely a minor warning. I have no intention of taking it back. As for the final outcome for those two, it will depend on their own destiny and the Alliance's methods. Having finished speaking, he didn't wait for Elder Yin to say more nonsense, turning directly to leave, acting incomparably domineering. Elder Yin's expression was naturally volatile, but facing an existence capable of resonating with the Emperor Star Will to such an extent, no matter how indignant he felt, he could only endure it. Elder Yin gritted his teeth inwardly. Under the gaze of the crowd, he could only grab the two half-dead men on the ground and vanish instantly. He understood that today, Gu Qijue had stepped on the Alliance to rise in power. Under the scrutiny of countless eyes, he, as a Grand Elder of the Alliance, was actually forced by Gu Qijue to bow his head and concede. Elder Yin's thoughts were completely correct. News of what happened here quickly spread like a hurricane, swiftly reaching the Emperor Star and the 6 continents. The Grand Elders of the Alliance base were already supreme existences to the many beings of the Emperor Star. Yet today, Elder Yin, one of the Alliance's Grand Elders, could only lower his gaze and submit before Gu Qijue, daring not to argue. Not only that, but Gu Qijue also achieved something unprecedented, and likely never to be repeated, resonating with the Emperor Star Will to the highest degree. Jai Tianyu gazed at Gu Qijue's tall and imposing figure, her eyes shining brightly. Her dual cultivation with Gu Qijue could greatly purify her bloodline and enhance her strength. After realizing that Gu Qijue could achieve the highest level of resonance with the Emperor Star Will, she couldn't help but want to help her bloodline purify faster and complete its transformation. On the other side, Jai Yinyu held the same thoughts as Jai Tianyu. A woman's intuition is very accurate. From the beginning, she felt that Gu Qijue was extraordinary. After getting to know him more deeply, she discovered Gu Qijue's exceptional nature. Unfortunately, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. While she was contemplating when to dedicate everything to Gu Qijue, her own old ancestor had already beaten her to it. But it didn't matter. Jai Yinyu already knew Gu Qijue's power, and she had performed dual cultivation with him once. Although the time was short, she had ultimately taken that step. To be frank, Jai Tianyu, the old ancestor alone, could not withstand Gu Qijue's immense power. It was impossible for her to monopolize him. Even adding herself wouldn't be enough to withstand it. Beyond her and Jai Tianyu, the old ancestor, there must be other stunning women who would receive this blessing. As the news of Gu Qijue resonating with the Emperor Star will spread, all parties were immersed in shock, and they simultaneously adjusted their attitudes toward the Infinite Group and Gu Qijue. As for the matter of vying for the Great Yan dynasty, no group or force mentioned it again. Bringing this up at such a time would mean either having a brain full of water or having been kicked in the head by a donkey. Even if they didn't try every possible way to befriend and attach themselves to the Infinite Group and Gu Qijue, they absolutely couldn't oppose the Infinite Group and Gu Qijue unless they were tired of living. 89, the prelude to war was thus begun. Brothers, the previous chapter, for some reason, went into the small dark room. Wait, Old Yin's retreat signified the alliance's concession. The Great Yan dynasty, this piece of cake, had completely fallen into the hands of the Infinite Group. Inside CEO Gu Qijue's office in the central building of the Infinite Group's base, I never expected you to have such a method. Jai Tianyu sat opposite Gu Qijue, sizing him up, and said, "The Emperor Star will, from ancient times until now, no one has ever been able to resonate with it. At most only communicate with it. How did you do it?" Only now did she realize that she had underestimated this young man. Gu Qijue gestured for Bai Jingyi to serve tea and chuckled, "Perhaps it's impossible for you, but in front of me nothing is impossible." "Oh, quite confident." Jai Tianyu smiled charmingly and said, "When do you plan to attack the Great Yan dynasty?" "As far as I know, the Great Yan dynasty has 3 saints on the surface, but actually 6, 3 of whom are peak saints." Gu Qijue's finger gently tapped the desk, and he calmly stated, 2 days from now? 2 days from now? Then I won't need to act for now. The moment I act will be the time to take down Medicine King Valley." Jai Tianyu's eyes flickered. Gu Qijue nodded. "Precisely. The vanguard units and main combat forces of the various major groups should arrive within these 1 or 2 days. 2 days later, battlefields will be everywhere across the Tianheng domain. At that time, when the Infinite Group launches its attack on the Great Yan dynasty, no one will be able to interfere. As for the saints of the Great Yan dynasty, the Infinite Group naturally has a complete strategy to deal with them." From his confident tone, Jai Tianyu knew that Gu Qijue was already fully confident in this campaign. So, after some thought, Jai Tianyu seriously said, "CEO Xing, there's something I'd like to discuss with you privately." Gu Qijue paused slightly but still nodded, "You may." Then he said to Bai Jingyi, "You go out first, without my word. I won't see anyone today." Bai Jingyi bowed to Gu Qijue with Emperor Star etiquette. "Yes, CEO Xing." With that, she retreated and closed the office door. Gu Qijue was a little curious. With war imminent, what did Jai Tianyu want to talk to him about? But he soon knew the answer to this question. Because Jai Tianyu had already taken a step with her slender, jade-like legs, swaying her waist, full of a myriad of charms, and sat directly on his lap, their eyes meeting. Gu Qijue smiled. "Little vixen, what is it that requires you to sit on my lap to discuss?" Jai Tianyu also gave a charming smile. "What do you think?" "Little man." Gu Qijue naturally understood what Jai Tianyu was referring to. For this old vixen, he too had savored the taste. After experiencing it once, though not to the point of being haunted by it, he still couldn't forget it. Jai Tianyu's luscious red lips soon met Gu Qijue's, and a terrifying battle without smoke began. This battle lasted for 2 days and 2 nights, and Jai Tianyu's bloodline was purified once more. After being fully released, Gu Qijue felt completely refreshed. Jai Tianyu, having been fully nourished, also glowed with radiance, though after 2 days and 2 nights of battle, even the heavenly moon demon emperor couldn't help but walk with a slight unnaturalness. After resonating with the Emperor's star will, Gu Qijue's combat power seemed to have further improved. During the cultivation process, Jai Tianyu gained even more benefits than before. 2 days passed in a flash. During this period, the major groups and various forces of the Emperor's star also took action. Most groups, including the Infinite Group, also launched attacks on the Tianheng domain at this time. The horn of war was fully sounded, and the curtain of war was thus drawn. The Emperor's star will once again collided most fiercely with the Tianheng domain's will, and the Tianheng domain completely entered the highest level of combat readiness. All forces in the Tianheng domain had made full preparations for battle to meet the invading enemy. The surrounding domains of the Tianheng domain, of course, also learned of the changes in the Tianheng domain. Some of these domains stood by, watching the show, not getting involved. Others were sharpening their blades, ready to profit if both the Emperor Star and the Tianheng domain suffered heavy losses in their conflict. There were also some domains whose strength was comparable to the Tianheng domain, and they vaguely felt a sense of crisis. The situation on the Shenhuang continent was already relatively stable. The intervention of the Emperor Star forces at this time would inevitably seize many resources and eliminate many weaker entities. If the Tianheng domain was not a match for the Emperor Star, they too were very likely to be targeted by the Emperor Star forces and eventually be carved up by them. These forces therefore did two things. The first was to support the Tianheng domain at a critical moment. They could not sit idly by and watch the Tianheng domain fall. If the Tianheng domain truly perished, they would also be in trouble. The best scenario would be for the Tianheng domain to be severely weakened by the Emperor Star forces, thereby ceding some benefits to them, and then they would help the Tianheng domain repel the Emperor Star's invasion, achieving a win-win situation. The second thing these forces had to do was to prepare for war. If things went awry, or if uncontrollable factors emerged, and the Tianheng domain quickly fell, they would have to confront the Emperor Star forces directly. On the Tianheng domain's side, the attitudes of various forces towards the Emperor Star were not uniform. Some were excited, some were fearful. Some forces were excited because they found that the vanguard units of many Emperor Star groups were not very strong. If their so-called technological weapons were removed, the combat power of many invaders was surprisingly weak. From these two aspects, the Emperor Star's attack on them was utterly nonsensical and suicidal. The fearful ones, however, felt that the technological weapons mastered by the Emperor Star forces were too powerful. Technological weapons were a completely unknown domain to them. They simply couldn't understand what they were. Fortunately, the beings of the Emperor Star were largely similar to them, and the method of killing Tianheng domain beings was entirely effective in killing Emperor Star beings. Regardless of whether people were excited or fearful, the Great War between the two sides still inevitably began. The Emperor Star will and the Tianheng domains will completely confronted each other, no longer able to exert any suppression on outsiders. Large numbers of wormholes and space teleportation devices were deployed by the major Emperor Star groups. Like mountains and seas, an endless stream of combat units was continuously transported to the battlefield. On the Infinite Group side, Lai Kongwu also led the Infinite Group's combat troops to the Great Yan dynasty. Lai Kongwu's aptitude was not bad. After completely refining the demon power crystal bestowed by Gu Qijue, he had fully stepped into the demon saint level. The Great Yan dynasty had long prepared for this. The moment Lai Kongwu led a large number of Infinite Group powerhouses and war machines into the Great Yan dynasty's territory, they reacted. 90. The wrath of the Great Flame is something you cannot withstand. On the vast, boundless battlefield, the cultivators of the Great Yan dynasty and the combat forces of the Infinite Group were rapidly assembling. On the Infinite Group side, mercenaries continuously emerged from wormholes and began setting up Legion-level spatial teleportation devices. Before long, over 1 million mercenaries and more than 3 million war robots, built using cutting-edge technology, appeared within the Infinite Group's formation. Behind the million mercenaries and 3 million war machines, Jai Shang, Cute Treasure, and others from the Emperor Academy also arrived at the battlefield. This foreign campaign was commanded by Lai Kongwu. Standing majestically behind Lai Kongwu were 3 war puppets, Star Source, Star Desolation, and Xing Mao, all at the 8th rank of the Demon Saint stage, exuding boundless, terrifying aura. Facing Lai Kongwu and his forces was the cultivator army of the Great Yan dynasty. The overall strength of the Great Yan dynasty should likewise not be underestimated. Their cultivator army was dense with armored soldiers, stretching from heaven to earth. Boom, boom, boom. From the Great Yan dynasty side, powerful figures continuously flew through the air, landing in front of the Great Yan dynasty's cultivator army. At the very front of the many powerful experts was the imperial uncle of the Great Yan dynasty, Imperial Uncle Beigong Han. Although he was not the strongest expert in the Great Yan dynasty, he was the supreme commander of the Great Yan dynasty forces. Imperial Uncle Beigong Han, like Lai Kongwu, was at the early stage of the saint rank. The Heavenly Moon Demon Emperor had previously stated that the Great Yan dynasty possessed 6 saint rank experts, 3 of whom had peak saint rank combat power, and this intelligence was completely accurate. Behind Imperial Uncle Beigong Han were the 5 great generals of Great Yan. All 5 great generals were saint rank experts, 3 were at the saint rank peak, and the remaining 2 were above the saint rank 5th layer. However, since Imperial Uncle Beigong Han held the honorable status of Imperial Uncle of Great Yan, he was in command of this major battle. Behind Imperial Uncle Beigong Han and the 5 great generals were 1 million Great Yan black armored army soldiers, the most elite cultivator army of Great Yan. These individuals were the elite of the elite, the ace of aces, within the Great Yan dynasty's cultivator army. Even though the Infinite Group possessed extremely formidable training bases, the individual combat power of the Great Yan black armored army was surprisingly able to match theirs. Following the 1 million Great Yan black armored army soldiers were 5 million ordinary cultivator army soldiers of the Great Yan dynasty. Their strength was slightly inferior to the Great Yan black armored army, but their number was terrifying, a full 5 million. This meant that 3 of the Infinite Group's war robots had to face 5 of the Great Yan dynasty's cultivator soldiers. In terms of high-end combat power, the Great Yan dynasty had 6 saint rank experts, while the Infinite Group only fielded 4, resulting in a 6 versus 4 situation. Regarding total combat units, the Great Yan dynasty had 6 million cultivator army soldiers, while the Infinite Group had only 4 million combat forces, plus the elites like Jai Shang from the Emperor Academy. The troop comparison also showed a 6 versus 4 situation. Judging from the surface data, the Infinite Group appeared to be at an absolute disadvantage. This naturally made the already confident Great Yan dynasty even more assured. Imperial Uncle Beigong Han of the Great Yan dynasty appeared opposite Lai Kongwu, coldly swept his gaze over him and spoke indifferently. "I am the Imperial Uncle of the Great Yan dynasty, Imperial Uncle Beigong Han, before I get angry. Immediately vanish from my sight and never step into the Great Yan dynasty's territorial boundary again. Otherwise, you and the forces behind you will all suffer the wrath of the Great Yan dynasty. And the anger of the Great Yan dynasty is not something you outsiders, who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, can withstand. When that time comes, blood will flow like rivers and bones will pile up like mountains. It will be too late for regret." Facing Imperial Uncle Beigong Han's provocation, Lai Kongwu naturally could not lose his dignity. He straightened his expression and spoke with equal coldness. "I am Lai Kongwu, the mercenary division head of the Infinite Group from Emperor Star. I now give you 2 choices, surrender or death." After Lai Kongwu finished speaking, he said nothing more. The path of life advancement was inherently a cruel game of survival of the fittest. Weakness is the original sin, and being weak while occupying vast resources is simply a path to self-destruction. But Imperial Uncle Beigong Han did not believe the Great Yan dynasty was weak. He and all the high-ranking officials of the Great Yan dynasty did not even take these bumpkins from outside the domain seriously. They had already obtained combat data regarding the battles between other Emperor Star groups and the local forces of the Tianheng domain. The Emperor Star forces possessed unique technological weapons that were extremely powerful. Setting aside the technological weapons, their individual combat power was mediocre, even terrible. In the eyes of the Great Yan dynasty, they were merely a group of weaklings who relied heavily on external objects. Coupled with their own superior surface data, the Imperial Uncle of Great Yan naturally didn't take the Infinite Group seriously. Imperial Uncle Beigong Han was absolutely confident that within 5 rounds, he would make Lai Kongwu kneel and call him father. Therefore, after Lai Kongwu made his declaration, the Imperial Uncle of Great Yan merely extended a hand. On the Infinite Group's side, no one knew what this gesture meant. However, since Lai Kongwu had not ordered an attack, the others naturally would not act rashly. Behind the Infinite Group's combat forces, Gu Qijue and Jai Yinyu had also arrived, but neither of them revealed themselves. Gu Qijue was not here to deal with minor enemies. Instead, he was waiting for the Great Yan dynasty to reveal their final, decisive trump card before making a decisive move to settle the situation. After seeing the Imperial Uncle of Great Yan's action, Jai Yinyu curiously asked, "Is he telling Lai Kongwu to wait and consider surrendering?" Gu Qijue said calmly, "He probably doesn't take us seriously and is about to deliver some profound statement." Events proved Gu Qijue correct, because right at that moment, Imperial Uncle Beigong Han spoke coldly. "5 moves, within 5 moves, I will make you regret ever coming to this world." As his voice fell, Imperial Uncle Beigong Han launched a fierce attack. As a fellow saint rank expert, Lai Kongwu naturally did not dare to be careless. When the Imperial Uncle of Great Yan made his move, Lai Kongwu also went all out. "Ha! with a loud shout from Lai Kangwu. The demonic power surging throughout his body raged wildly. When the imperial uncle of Great Yan struck with an earth-shattering palm, Lai Kangwu did not hesitate at all, directly punching out to meet the attack head-on. Rumble, boom, 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 boom. This single blow was astonishing, shaking the heavens and the earth. A clash between saint-rank experts was no small matter. The void realm at the location of their battle became distorted under their combined offensive, making it impossible to clearly see the situation at the center of the clash. A powerful shockwave swept outward in all directions, centered on the two of them. Many soldiers from both sides who were too close and lacked sufficient strength died suddenly on the spot, exploding into clouds of blood mist. But a scene that terrified everyone soon followed. That was, a figure was actually sent flying backward from the center of the battle. The one sent flying backward was none other than the imperial uncle of Great Yan, Imperial Uncle Baigong Han, clad in his python robe. One sleeve of his wide, flowing robe had already burst apart. His entire being was filled with disbelief, and he looked at Lai Kangwu with extreme horror. Both being saint-rank experts, was the gap between him and Lai Kangwu really so vast? He had clashed with the opponent head-on for one move, and he had actually been blasted away. Lai Kangwu looked at the imperial uncle of Great Yan, whom he had sent flying with a single punch, and felt a mix of amusement and frustration. Is that all? Brothers who are reading as members, please give me a free monthly pass. Thank you. I also ask for a few recommendation tickets. 91, Infinite Group's Technological Iron Fist. How could this be? Imperial Uncle was blasted away. Didn't they say outsiders were individually extremely weak, relying purely on technological weapons to exert their might? Lai Kangwu's punch created immense deterrence among the Great Yan Dynasty cultivator army. At this moment, the many cultivators of the Great Yan Dynasty army looked at Lai Kangwu and the Infinite Group members with a hint of apprehension. Fortunately, they still held the advantage, whether in terms of high-level combat power or overall troop strength. After the initial surprise, they quickly adjusted. This was true not only for the many cultivators of the Great Yan Dynasty army, but also for Imperial Uncle Baigong Han and the others. After realizing Lai Kangwu's formidable strength, Imperial Uncle no longer entertained the idea of facing Lai Kangwu one-on-one. With a wave of his hand, he directly ordered, "Cultivators of the Great Yan Dynasty, heed my command, initiate combat." As he spoke, Lai Kangwu also issued a combat order. "All combat units of the Infinite Group, heed my command, kill." As Lai Kangwu uttered the word kill, the Infinite Group's 1,000,000 mercenary corps and 3,000,000 war machines all sprang into action. Not only them, but Jai Shang Lanzai, an ape emperor from the Emperor Academy, also joined the battle. On the side of the Great Yan Dynasty, the 1,000,000 Great Yan Black Armored Army and the 5,000,000 Great Yan Cultivator Army launched their charge at this moment. At the rear of the Infinite Group forces, Gu Qijue and Jai Yinyu remained motionless. Jai Yinyu's gaze was intently fixed on the distant battlefield. Unlike Gu Qijue, she felt a degree of nervousness. After all, Emperor Star had never fought against the Tianheng domain before. No one could clearly say what the final outcome would be once the battle began. After watching for a while, Jai Yinyu realized that Gu Qijue remained extremely calm throughout. She couldn't help but ask, "CEO Xing, are you so confident that the Infinite Group's 4,000,000 troops can definitely defeat the Great Yan Dynasty's 6,000,000 troops?" Gu Qijue smiled. "What else?" Jai Yinyu was not as optimistic as he was, and she spoke earnestly. "CEO Xing's ability to achieve the highest level of resonance with the Emperor Star is unprecedented and epic-making. It is a supreme achievement unmatched by anyone before or since. However, the elites of the Infinite Group, even Lai Kangwu and the others, are far, far inferior compared to you. Under these circumstances, it might not be easy for the Infinite Group's 4,000,000 troops to handle the Great Yan Dynasty's 6,000,000 troops." Jai Yinyu wasn't boosting the enemy's morale or diminishing their own prestige. She was merely stating an established fact. Although the Great Yan Dynasty was nothing in the face of her Tian Yue group, the current Infinite Group still had the possibility of defeat when facing them. Gu Qijue chuckled. "Is war won by numbers? The competition has never been about the size of the superficial data. Just wait and see." Upon hearing this, Jai Yinyu nodded slightly. Since Gu Qijue was so confident, it meant the Infinite Group's chances of winning were definitely very high. But since she had nothing else to do at the moment, she simply continued discussing the battle situation with Gu Qijue. According to the intelligence gathered from various sources, The major powers of the Tianheng domain often hide powerful trump cards capable of settling the decisive blow. CEO Xing, if you aren't worried about the Great Yan Dynasty's 6 million cultivator army, are you also unconcerned about the Great Yan Dynasty's ultimate trump card? Listening to her articulate speech, Gu Qijue calmly stated, "The reason I am here and have not yet made a move is precisely to wait for the Great Yan Dynasty to reveal their ultimate trump card. I also want to see what kind of powerful ultimate trump card a power of the Great Yan Dynasty's caliber possesses." While Gu Qijue and Jai Yinyu discussed the battle situation, the great battle on the field was unfolding fiercely. Lai Kangwu still confronted the Imperial Uncle. The Imperial Uncle had previously been blasted away by one of Lai Kangwu's punches, making it seem at first glance that the gap between them was enormous. In reality, this was not the case. Although the Imperial Uncle's strength was weaker than Lai Kangwu's, the difference was limited. After the Imperial Uncle began to unleash his full power, Lai Kangwu could no longer casually send him flying backward. Opposite Lai Kangwu, there was only one Saint Stage expert, the Imperial Uncle. However, the Great Yan Dynasty deployed a large number of half-saints to jointly besiege Lai Kangwu alongside the Imperial Uncle. Surrounding the three Saint Stage 8th layer war puppets, Star Source, Star Desolation, and Xing Mao, was one Great Yan Dynasty expert at the peak of the Saint Stage. Opposite Star Source and Star Desolation, besides the peak Saint Stage experts, there was also another Saint Stage expert. Although Xing Mao did not face two Saint Stages, he was being besieged by one peak Saint Stage expert and a large number of half-saints. Yet, whether it was Lai Kangwu, Star Source, Star Desolation, or Xing Mao, their strength was formidable. Even when facing the Saint Stage experts and the large number of half-saint cultivators of the Great Yan Dynasty, they still held the advantage. Lai Kangwu had achieved a great degree of improvement at the infinite training base. His physical body physique, the purity of the energy within him, and his combat skills and experience completely crushed those of creatures at the same stage. It wasn't just him, all Infinite Group combat units trained at the Infinite Training Base were the same. Therefore, although they were disadvantaged in terms of numbers, they held an absolute advantage in quality. After the battle began, not only were they not suppressed, but they instead reached a stalemate with the Great Yan Dynasty's 6 million cultivator army. As time went on, the combat units of the Infinite Group even began to subtly suppress the Great Yan Dynasty's 6 million cultivator army. Outside the battlefield, Gu Qijue observed the entire fighting area very clearly. He could clearly see that the Infinite Group was the advantageous party in every single engagement. However, this was, after all, a battle between 4 million combat troops and 6 million cultivator troops. It was impossible to determine the victor quickly. Although they couldn't achieve a swift victory, it was clear that the Infinite Group winning was only a matter of time. Lai Kangwu's fighting style was essentially martial Dao. However, the fighting styles of Star Source, Star Desolation, Xing Mao, the other mercenaries, and the 3 million war machines were empowered by infinite technology. All kinds of laser weapons continuously erupted with dazzling laser beams, blasting toward the Great Yan Dynasty's cultivators. Boom, boom, boom. On the battlefield, laser weapons frequently blasted the Great Yan Dynasty's cultivators directly into two halves. Damn it. Are those the technological weapons of the extraterrestrial beings? Hiss, what terrifying weapons, brothers, be careful. Not only laser weapons, but various black technology portable missiles also continuously blanketed the Great Yan Dynasty's cultivator army. Before the battle began, the Great Yan Dynasty's cultivator army had never imagined that the battle they encountered would be like this. That wasn't all. When their spirit techniques struck the Infinite Group's combat units, they were often directly blocked by various energy shields. This couldn't help but instill a sense of powerlessness in the hearts of the Great Yan Dynasty's cultivator army. The enemy's laser weapons were incredibly powerful. They didn't need to form seals or chant spells, they were all instant cast and could attack continuously. When their spirit techniques were launched, they were blocked by the enemy's energy shields. How were they supposed to fight? 92. The Great Yan Dynasty's trump card revealed on the Great Yan Dynasty's side. No one knew what the best strategy was for dealing with the Infinite Group's combat forces. Their arrogance and prejudice toward the outsiders had completely vanished at this moment. The proud cultivators of the Great Yan Dynasty had now fully learned the power of the technological iron fist wielded by the Infinite Group. Especially Star Source, Star Desolation, and Xing Mao, they were the true technological iron fists. These 3 Saint-tier 8th level war puppets could use various technological weapons, and at the same time, they could scan and analyze the opponent's attack methods, adopting the optimal strategy for combat. The Great Yan Dynasty Saint-tier experts fighting Star Source, Star Desolation, and Xing Mao now suspected that a traitor had appeared within their ranks. They suspected the traitor had revealed all their methods to the outsiders. They had limited understanding of the Infinite Group's Saint-tier combat units' attack methods. Furthermore, they were unable to fully grasp them in such a short time. Yet, Star Source, Star Desolation, and Xing Mao seemed to know them inside and out, understanding everything perfectly. When a saint, who was at the Saint-tier peak of the Great Yan Dynasty, prepared to throw a punch at Star Source. The moment he raised his hand, Star Source had already tilted slightly, making an accurate evasion in advance. The Saint-tier expert's half-thrown punch left him unsure whether he should continue the strike or pull it back. This wasn't because the opponent's combat experience was rich enough to predict his actions, but rather because the opponent seemed to know him inside and out, understanding everything perfectly. Most of his attacks frequently missed, and the few feints he used to try and force Star Source into a misjudgment and subsequent error. As a result, Star Source didn't dodge or evade at all, taking his punch head-on while simultaneously pressing a laser cannon right against his face. How could he possibly fight like that? This wasn't only happening on the high-end battlefield, it was happening on every battlefield. After rapidly scanning and analyzing the enemy's fighting style, the Infinite Group's combat forces could restrict the opponents, leaving them bound and unable to exert their strength. Alternatively, they would directly analyze the target's weakness, fire the laser cannon fiercely, hitting the soul with one shot, instantly blasting the powerful enemy into smithereens. Shortly after the war began, the Infinite Group's combat units started advancing, and continuously advancing. The battlefield was littered with the corpses of the Great Yan Dynasty's cultivator armies and the Infinite Group's broken mechanical parts. Since the Great Yan Dynasty had still not revealed their powerful trump card, Gu Qijue was not in a hurry to make a move. Jia Yinyu knew that the Infinite Group's combat forces were definitely not weak. However, she had not expected the Infinite Group's combat forces to be formidable to this extent. Jia Yinyu's beautiful eyes were momentarily filled with a dazzling expression. She looked at Gu Qijue and asked uncertainly, CEO Xing, were the Infinite Group's combat forces all specially trained in the Infinite Group's training base? Gu Qijue nodded, looked into the distance, and smiled faintly. Mostly. Yes, it looks like it's my turn to act. Jia Yinyu naturally didn't understand, surely not yet. Her question, of course, didn't need Gu Qijue to answer. She understood it herself immediately. On the Great Yan Dynasty's side, several fire-armored saint-tiers suddenly appeared, their bodies wreathed in flames. They wore golden armor, and surrounding the armor, a layer of golden flame continuously burned. After these fire-armored saint-tier experts appeared, they charged directly toward the Infinite Group's combat forces, but they were naturally unable to reach the Infinite Group's combat forces because Gu Qijue's voice was already echoing over the entire battlefield. Everyone, come exchange a few moves with me. As his voice fell, his figure appeared above the battlefield. There's still a hidden expert, kill him. These figures, clad in golden armor and wrapped entirely in flames, were extremely surprised when they saw Gu Qijue. They truly hadn't expected that this group of outsiders still had experts who hadn't made a move. However, the golden-armored divine beings did not hesitate. They all charged toward Gu Qijue immediately. Chalala! Gu Qijue raised his eyes, and black thunderstorms spread around his body, continuously exploding. He did not wait for this group of golden-armored divine beings to charge over. Instead, he met their spearhead and rushed into the fray. He had already discerned that this armor wreathed in golden flames seemed to be a luck treasure, bound to the Great Yan Dynasty's luck. The cultivators inside the armor were not particularly powerful themselves, but the armor's enhancement granted them saint-tier combat strength. In other words, within the territory covered by the Great Yan Dynasty's national destiny. If any group intended to attack the Great Yan Dynasty, they would have to face not only the 6 overt and covert saint-tier combatants of the Great Yan Dynasty, but also an additional 12 saint-tier combatants. The Great Yan Dynasty possessed more than just 12 sets of this golden armor that could summon the power of the Great Yan Dynasty's national destiny. However, only 12 sets could unleash saint-tier combat strength, the others could only barely unleash half-saint combat strength. Even so, this was already terrifying. Under normal circumstances, having equal strength, or slightly superior strength, basically met the conditions for launching a war. If a group had only prepared 6 Saint-tier combat units to attack the Great Yan dynasty, and the Great Yan dynasty subsequently brought out an extra 12 special Saint-tier combatants and a large number of half-Saint combatants, then that group would inevitably suffer heavy losses and pay an extremely painful price. The people from the Infinite group were extremely surprised at this moment. They hadn't expected the Great Yan dynasty's trump card to be so powerful in the first place. 12 saints and numerous half-saints, this was definitely a terrifying force capable of crushing cities and destroying nations. In midair, the battle between Gu Qijue and the Great Yan dynasty saints also attracted many gazes. Under the gaze of countless eyes, Gu Qijue met the spearhead directly, violently colliding with one of the Great Yan dynasty saints. Rumble, boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, it was as if the sky was collapsing and the earth was splitting, mountains and rivers were shattering, and deafening explosions continuously echoed between heaven and earth. A terrifying shockwave also swept out and diffused in all directions from the two figures, instantly shattering the combat units of both sides that were too close. But an even more terrifying scene followed. Gu Qijue's tall and magnificent figure dominated the heavens and earth. His punch, carrying world-shattering thunder, actually blasted apart the Great Yan dynasty saint's arm and armor. The opponent's arm and armor only resisted for a single instant before being utterly crushed inch by inch into dust. How can such overbearing power exist? This person was terrified beyond measure. Before he could react, with a poof, Gu Qijue's overwhelmingly dominant punch continued its momentum, instantly blasting this Great Yan dynasty cultivator, who had temporarily raised his combat strength to Saint tier by relying on an external item, into a cloud of blood mist. This scene was truly shocking. The Great Yan dynasty side, the Infinite group's combat forces, and even Gu Qijue of the Tianyue group, all of them experienced pupil tremors at this moment. Instant kill, an instant kill of a saint with one punch? Hiss! Even though the battle was extremely fierce at this moment, all combat personnel from both sides who witnessed this scene couldn't help but gasp sharply. 93. Pursue the fleeing enemy and exterminate them all. On the battlefield where the Infinite group clashed with the Great Yan dynasty, Gu Qijue seemed to have transformed into a dragon, his punch tearing open the sky. The Saint-tier expert, the highest combat power on both sides, was actually blown apart by his single punch. His formidable dominance made everyone's divine souls tremble. Gu Qijue also felt a hint of surprise in his heart. He wasn't surprised by his own power, but by the opponent's foolishness. With that punch just now, this person actually met it head-on with their physical body. Was he a fool or was he unable to dodge? This was normal when facing an unknown enemy. One could first probe and then target effectively. But even if it was a probe, the opponent shouldn't have been so careless, allowing him to easily kill them with one punch. Sure enough, the Emperor of the Great Yan dynasty let out an extremely furious roar at this moment. Are you all donkeys? How dare you be so careless when facing such a powerful enemy? The Emperor of the Great Yan dynasty was also among the golden-armored divine beings, and he was the strongest among the 12 golden-armored divine beings. Of course, now there were only 11 golden-armored divine beings left. Before Emperor Baigong Yin of the Great Yan dynasty could command everyone, Gu Qijue once again transformed into a blood-red shadow wreathed in lightning, approaching a golden-armored divine being. This person had been terrified by the previous scene. He still hadn't understood how their comrade had been blasted to death by Gu Qijue's single punch. When Gu Qijue charged towards him, he even felt extreme fear in his heart. His first reaction was not to stay and fight Gu Qijue, but to flee. However, he now definitely possessed Saint-tier combat power, and his powerful strength allowed him to suppress his fear. When Gu Qijue's punch suddenly struck, he also roared and met it with a full-force punch. Although this person was not killed by Gu Qijue's punch, after Gu Qijue's fist broke through his, it still heavily dented the golden armor on this person's body. Boom! A terrifying, overwhelming force struck, and this golden-armored divine being was sent flying backward by Gu Qijue's punch. However, before the opponent could stabilize himself, Gu Qijue instantly caught up to him. Terrifying lightning gathered on his fist, and he ruthlessly blasted the opponent's head directly apart. After the first Saint-tier combat unit, the Great Yan dynasty's second Saint-tier combat unit also fell. Gu Qijue, if he didn't act, then nothing, but when he did, it was earth-shattering and world-shaking. In an extremely short time, he had successively killed 2 Saint-tier combatants. This was an incredibly explosive and terrifying record on any battlefield in the Tianheng domain. However, The subsequent battle was not so easy. The first two, one had the intention to probe and died unjustly. The second was indecisive, and fear arose in his heart, causing his performance to be a mess. Gu Qijue seized the opening and swiftly killed him, with the lessons learned from the first two. The remaining 10 golden-armored divine beings no longer dared to show any slack. They all gathered together and charged towards Gu Qijue. Along with them came a large number of half-saints. These half-saints wore silver armor, and their own strength had not actually reached the half-saint level. It was only with the blessing of the Great Yan dynasty's national destiny treasure that they possessed half-saint strength. However, 2 saint-tier combatants had already died before Gu Qijue. No matter how many half-saints came, it would be in vain. Under the gaze of Jia Yinyu and many powerful experts from both sides, it seemed as if a fireworks show was taking place in midair. However, what was constantly exploding was not fireworks, but the silver-armored half-saints blasted apart by Gu Qijue. In the face of absolute power, numerical advantage was useless. Aside from Beigong Yin and the other 10 golden-armored divine beings, any remaining half-saint caught by Gu Qijue's opportunity and struck by a bolt of lightning was doomed to certain death. As time passed, even the number of golden-armored divine beings continued to decrease. When the original 12 golden-armored divine beings were reduced to only 7, Beigong Yin could only make a decision that went against ancestral traditions. Orderly retreat from the battlefield, head to the Jihang imperial dynasty for reinforcements. The Great Yan Emperor made this decision with great difficulty. The 5 million Great Yan dynasty cultivator army was no match for the 3 million infinite group combat troops. The 1 million Great Yan black armored army was even being suppressed by the 1 million infinite group mercenary troops. Imperial Uncle Beigong Han and the other 6 saint tiers of the Great Yan dynasty were similarly no match for Lai Kongwu and the other 4 saint tier combatants. Their battlefield with Gu Qijue was even more outrageous. A saint tier combatant was instantly killed by Gu Qijue in one encounter. Subsequently, Gu Qijue, with overwhelming force, swiftly killed 4 more saint-tier combatants and a large number of half-saints. Under such circumstances, apart from retreating for reinforcements, he had no other options. As soon as Beigong Yin left, the already retreating Great Yan dynasty cultivator army collapsed like a landslide. A large number of cultivators abandoned their armor and fled desperately in all directions, scrambling to escape. However, it was not so easy for either Beigong Yin or the other cultivators of the Great Yan dynasty to leave. Gu Qijue's voice resounded between heaven and earth. Infinite group combat forces, heed my command, pursue the fleeing. Annihilate all. As his voice fell, he was the first to give chase. The Great Yan dynasty had no choice but to sacrifice a limb to survive. The 6 saint-tier combatants and numerous half-saints that Beigong Yin had taken with him earlier all stayed behind to hold the line and cover the retreat. Emperor Beigong Yin of Great Yan, along with Imperial Uncle Beigong Han and others, fled towards the Ziyang domain. The Ziyang domain was not yet embroiled in war. The Jihang imperial dynasty in the Ziyang domain was considered to be of the same lineage as the Great Yan dynasty. There was no reason for them not to offer refuge when they sought asylum. However, the Great Yan dynasty was thoroughly beaten into a broken-backed dog this time. A quarter of their 6 million cultivator army died during the battle, and another quarter died during the escape. Under the Infinite Group's relentless pursuit, the slower members of the remaining cultivator army also became casualties under the blade. Another quarter of the cultivator army was swiftly annihilated by the Infinite Group. Of the 6 million cultivator army, less than a quarter ultimately managed to escape successfully. However, thanks to their obstruction, Emperor Beigong Yin did manage to escape the Great Yan dynasty with a portion of the defeated remnants. Beigong Yin and his entourage left in a great hurry, especially Beigong Yin, who didn't even have time to take his empress. Of course, this empress did not disappoint Beigong Yin. She was not humiliated or even captured alive by the Infinite Group's powerhouses. Instead, she committed suicide. At this time, the Infinite Group's combat units swiftly occupied various resource areas and important cities of the Great Yan dynasty, awaiting Gu Qijue's command. After Gu Qijue slaughtered the remaining 6 golden-armored divine beings, he also appeared above the imperial city of the Great Yan dynasty. The factions of the Great Yan dynasty that had no time to escape could, of course, only welcome Your Excellency Xingju, the wise and mighty CEO of the Infinite Group, to his loyal Great Yan dynasty. 94. Dayan resource collections cite the Great Yan dynasty fell too quickly, so fast that people were at a loss. Within the Great Yan dynasty, Many nobles and high-ranking officials of major powers suddenly found themselves prisoners. Their fate became uncertain. They might live, or they might become a corpse on the land of Great Yan, fertilizer for this fertile soil. Their monarch, Bei Gongyin, had already left, and their strong cultivators had either died in battle or fled. Everyone suddenly became more nervous than ever before. No one could have imagined that the enemy they had scorned before the war possessed such terrifying combat capabilities. The Great Yan dynasty, once flourishing, was actually annihilated by the opponent with overwhelming force. Great Yan dynasty. Imperial palace. Gu Qijue did not sit on the Great Yan Emperor's dragon throne. He had no interest in this loser's chair. His towering figure stood on the high platform where the dragon throne was located. Below, Jai Yinyu, CEO of Tianyue Group, sat at the upper right sipping tea with interest. In the center of the main hall, Lai Kongwu of Infinite Group, along with Star Source and the other two, stood quietly. Lanzai Jiasheng and other Emperor Academy students stood on the left side of the hall, silently observing everything happening before them. The nobles of the Great Yan dynasty and the leaders of various factions within the Great Yan dynasty. At this moment, they were all kneeling behind Lai Kongwu and the others. Each of them was trembling with fear, as if standing on the edge of a cliff or treading on thin ice. They were filled with worry about their own destinies. Many even feared that they would not leave this hall alive today. While everyone was nervous, the domineering man standing before the dragon throne spoke indifferently. I am Ju, CEO of Infinite Group. From this moment on, the Great Yan dynasty officially becomes a resource collection area for Infinite Group. All resources and all living beings within the territory of the Great Yan dynasty belong to Infinite Group. Among you, those who have the ability to collect the Great Yan dynasty's resources to the greatest extent for Infinite Group, stand up and answer. Gu Qijue's words echoed throughout the entire hall. The expressions of the many nobles of the Great Yan dynasty turned extremely ugly at this moment. The Great Yan dynasty was no more. From now on, all resources within the Great Yan dynasty's territory would belong to Infinite Group. No one among those kneeling on the ground spoke for a while. They didn't know how to speak. After a long time, a prince of the Great Yan dynasty finally stood up. Gu Qijue's gaze fell upon this person, and he asked, "Who are you?" Sidu Nan bowed to Gu Qijue and said, "This sinner is Prince Wenin of the Great Yan dynasty." Sidu Nan? He was the only prince with a different surname in the Great Yan dynasty, and he was granted the title because he had invented and created many useful things for the Great Yan dynasty. Not only that, but he also improved and optimized a large number of magical artifacts for the Great Yan dynasty. He also organized and compiled all the Great Yan dynasty's ancient texts, categorizing them and placing them in the Great Yan Academy. In other words, this was a top-tier talent. Gu Qijue had no knowledge of Sidu Nan. After Sidu Nan stood up, he immediately asked, "Can you collect resources for Infinite Group from the Great Yan dynasty?" Sidu Nan nodded, then shook his head. "What do you mean?" Gu Qijue asked coldly, his eyes slightly chilling. Sidu Nan spoke neither subserviently nor arrogantly. "I have the ability to collect all resources within the Great Yan dynasty for Infinite Group. But I want to know, for those in the Great Yan dynasty who only wish to survive and not get involved in the dynastic change, is there still a way out?" The question he asked was very crucial, and it made everyone kneeling in the hall break into a cold sweat for him. The person above was a ruthless individual who had killed many saint-tier powerhouses. If he became displeased, Sidu Nan would undoubtedly be annihilated. Gu Qijue's indifferent voice rang out, regardless of what faction they belonged to before. Anyone who contributes to the development of Infinite Group can become an unofficial member of Infinite Group. If they make outstanding contributions to the development of Infinite Group, they can transition from an unofficial member to a full member of Infinite Group. Those with exceptional abilities and outstanding contributions can even join Infinite Group's combat units and become middle-level or even mid-to-high-level management within the group. In the short term, Gu Qijue did not intend to replace Infinite Group's high-level management. Even people like Sidu Nan would only be unofficial members of Infinite Group for a long time to come. After Gu Qijue finished speaking, Sidu Nan bowed and said, "I understand. I am willing to collect and organize various resources within the Great Yan dynasty's territory for your excellency, Xingju." After Sidu Nan finished these words, many nobles of the Great Yan dynasty either breathed a sigh of relief or fell into complete despair. The Great Yan Emperor's escape clearly caused the Great Yan dynasty to completely lose the hearts of its people. Now even a talent like Sidu Nan chose to embrace Infinite Group. Gu Qijue didn't know that Sidu Nan was a top-tier talent. He only felt that the other party understood the most basic law of survival. The strong prey on the weak. Survival of the fittest, it is the law of nature. Under Gu Qijue's efforts, Infinite Group rapidly developed and grew from nothing, rolling like a snowball until now. Infinite Group finally possessed the strength to suppress the Great Yan dynasty. If Infinite Group had developed more slowly, or if Tianheng Domain had attacked Emperor Star instead of Emperor Star attacking Tianheng Domain. At that time, facing a powerful enemy, if Infinite Group did not have sufficient self-preservation capabilities, it could not blame anyone. Gu Qijue now deeply understood the Tao of survival. He must not only continuously enhance his own strength but also continuously develop his power. This would ensure that he, those around him, and the entire Infinite Group remained in an advantageous position in the cruel competition for survival. After Sidu Nan, others successively pledged allegiance to Infinite Group. Gu Qijue did not prioritize these people based on who came first. Everything was determined by contribution metrics. Whoever contributed more to Infinite Group would naturally receive more attention and benefits. In time, they might even become mid to high-level management in Infinite Group, and with the empowerment of Infinite Group's technology, expand its territory. Gu Qijue's efficiency in handling matters was very high. He basically completed the cleanup work for the Great Yan dynasty in less than half a day. Next, he and Jai Yinyu would continue with some detailed discussions, because their next target was Medicine King Valley. Medicine King Valley was one of the top few major powers in Tianheng Domain, possessing extremely formidable strength. It would be extremely difficult for the current Infinite Group to contend against Medicine King Valley alone. However, Infinite Group did not need to face Medicine King Valley alone. Tianyue Group would be Infinite Group's most loyal ally. The Imperial Palace Hall, which had previously held many people, soon only had Gu Qijue and Jai Yinyu remaining. 95. Negotiations for an attack on Medicine King Valley Great Yan Dynasty, Imperial Palace Main Hall. In the spacious main hall, Gu Qijue, CEO of Infinite Group, and Jai Yinyu, CEO of Tianyue Group, sat facing each other from east to west. Gu Qijue spoke directly, "We're about to attack Medicine King Valley. Unlike the Great Yan Dynasty, Medicine King Valley possesses Imperial rank combat power, as well as a large number of Saint rank combat units. Whether it's Infinite Group or Tianyue Group, it would be difficult for either to take on Medicine King Valley alone." Jai Yinyu nodded slightly. "I agree with that. In fact, CEO Xing and I only have 2 issues to negotiate next." She used the word negotiate, not discuss. When they were alone, she was, of course, a woman willing to dedicate everything to Gu Qijue, because during that process not only was her bloodline purified, but she also experienced extreme pleasure. Jai Yinyu had originally disdained this primal pleasure, which stemmed from the depths of life itself. But ever since she experienced Gu Qijue's fierce and domineering charm, she couldn't help but become somewhat addicted to it. However, that was only when they interacted in a private capacity. Now, Gu Qijue represented Infinite Group, and she represented the interests of Tianyue Group. Gu Qijue raised his hand, signaling Jai Yinyu to continue. "CEO Jai, please speak." Jai Yinyu didn't waste time and spoke directly. "The first issue to negotiate is how many combat troops Infinite Group and Tianyue Group will each dispatch. The second issue to negotiate is how to divide Medicine King Valley's resources after a successful operation." Gu Qijue had, of course, thought of these 2 issues. After Jai Yinyu finished speaking, Gu Qijue didn't immediately state his own thoughts but asked, "Does CEO Jai have a proposal?" Jai Yinyu thought for a moment and said, "Tianyue Group doesn't have just one target, but Tianyue Group's Imperial rank combat units cannot be sent to all battlefields. It has been confirmed that Medicine King Valley possesses an Emperor rank expert. This means that either Tianyue Group or Infinite Group must have at least one Imperial rank combat power. If Tianyue Group dispatches an Emperor rank expert to participate in the battle, Tianyue Group will claim 70% of Medicine King Valley's resources. Conversely, if Infinite Group dispatches an Emperor rank expert to participate in the battle, Infinite Group can also claim 70% of Medicine King Valley's resources. What do you think of this proposal, CEO Xing?" Although Tianyue Group and Infinite Group were in a cooperative relationship, neither side would concede on profit distribution. Gu Qijue nodded slightly. "Very fair and reasonable, therefore. Infinite Group will have Imperial rank combat power participating in the battle." His words startled Jai Yinyu. Jai Yinyu, who had been sitting calmly, immediately stood up abruptly upon hearing this, shocked. and said, Infinite Group has a hidden Imperial rank combat power. Infinite Group could, of course, have hidden Imperial rank combat power, but doing so would require clearing out all current Infinite points. Infinite Group had already spread throughout the Great Yan dynasty, accumulating countless Infinite points. However, Gu Qijue wasn't planning to create an Imperial rank war puppet, because the Imperial rank combat power he spoke of was none other than himself. Gu Qijue raised his eyelids slightly and said indifferently, Does CEO Jai think I possess Imperial rank combat power? How could Jai Yinyu have imagined that Infinite Group's Imperial rank combat power was actually Gu Qijue? But after serious consideration, she still nodded. Judging from CEO Xing's performance on the battlefield not long ago, and his ability to resonate with the Emperor Star will to the greatest extent, both indicate CEO Xing indeed possesses Imperial rank strength, and with CEO Xing's growth rate, he will undoubtedly become a leader among Imperial rank experts in the near future. Since CEO Xing is willing to confront Medicine King Valley's Imperial rank expert, the number of combat troops our Tianyue group dispatches will account for 40% of the total forces, and ultimately we will claim 30% of the resources. By doing this, she wasn't letting Gu Qijue get an unfair advantage, because Emperor rank experts are the most difficult to deal with. Since Infinite Group was taking on this tough challenge, and Tianyue Group still wanted to claim 30% of the profits from it, then the combat troops they dispatched, accounting for 40% of the total forces, was undoubtedly the most appropriate arrangement. Gu Qijue nodded. At the negotiating table, Jai Yinyu was undoubtedly a very intelligent woman. Negotiating with a smart woman was, of course, also extremely easy and pleasant. After he nodded, the negotiation naturally concluded. So Jai Yinyu prepared to do something even more relaxing and pleasant with him. The Imperial Palace main hall was enveloped by an extremely powerful energy field. Everything in the hall became extremely blurry light and shadow, but one could still vaguely discern Jai Yinyu being embraced by Gu Qijue. As their eyes met, Jai Yinyu was also kissed by Gu Qijue. Everyone only knew that Your Excellency Xing Ju and CEO Jai Yinyu were conducting commercial negotiations between the two major groups. As for whether something wonderful happened after the commercial negotiations, no one knew. Only Lai Kangwu, guarding outside the Imperial Palace main hall, had a somewhat strange look in his eyes. He wasn't sure if Your Excellency Xing Ju and Your Excellency Jai Yinyu were sparring in the Imperial Palace main hall, because the ground he was standing on was experiencing rhythmic vibrations. If it was a sparring session, it seemed both parties were extremely fierce in their attacks. If not for the Great Yan Imperial Palace being fortified by very top-tier restriction formations, it might have already been shattered by the two of them. Lai Kangwu didn't know who won the sparring match between Your Excellency Xing Ju and Jai Yinyu. He only knew that the ground he was on didn't stop vibrating until early the next morning, suggesting that their sparring had ceased. Lai Kangwu, of course, also wouldn't know that in this sparring session between Gu Qijue and Jai Yinyu, there were no losers, both were winners. Jai Yinyu's bloodline was purified again, and her strength advanced further. Gu Qijue, who had exerted his full strength during his previous battles with the Great Yan Emperor and others, now experienced a thorough and exhilarating release once more. This balance of tension and relaxation, combining work and rest, actually allowed him to refine his 6th blood bead into a black dragon bead. He had now obtained 6 of the 9 ancestors of the blood dragon's legacies. His own rank was only a hair's breadth away from the Imperial rank, and he could step into the Imperial rank at any time. In this state, he already possessed full Imperial rank combat power. Jai Yinyu didn't know that Gu Qijue had achieved such a significant improvement. Tianyue Group would also participate in the attack on Medicine King Valley, so Jai Yinyu also needed to make some arrangements. When Jai Yinyu walked out of the Imperial Palace main hall, she was radiant. This was partly because her bloodline had been purified, and partly, of course, because she had received nourishment from Gu Qijue. Infinite Group's attack on Medicine King Valley will deploy 1 Imperial rank combat power, which is Gu Qijue himself. There will be 5 Saint rank combat powers, Lai Kangwu, 3 from Star Source, and the last one has a special identity. His entire family was annihilated by the Great Yan Imperial family, making him a sworn enemy of the Great Yan Imperial family. His original name was Yang Yufu, but he has since changed it to Yang Chu to remind himself to always remember his hatred. For such a person, after confirming his background was fine and he was willing to join Infinite Group, Gu Qijue would naturally give him an opportunity to participate in the battle. 96. Pre-battle meeting, final battle preparations Lai Kongwu, Star Source, and the newly defected Yang Chu make a total of 5 Saint-rank combat units. In fact, Sidu Nan, the Great Yan dynasty's foreign surname king who defected earlier, could also become a Saint-rank cultivator. Sidu Nan is currently at the peak of half-saint strength. As long as Gu Qijue bestows a demon power crystal upon him, he can achieve a breakthrough. However, Sidu Nan has no interest in war. What he is interested in are the various technologies of the Infinite Group. The development of the Infinite Group requires war-type talents, management-type talents, and of course, research-type talents. Sidu Nan did not want to participate in the war, and Gu Qijue had no intention of forcing him to. Moreover, he had not yet bestowed a demon power crystal upon Sidu Nan. He merely learned more about Sidu Nan through Lai Kongwu's report. In addition to 1 Imperial rank combatant and 5 Saint rank combatants, the Infinite Group also dispatched 1 million mercenary troops and 3 million war machines. The Infinite Group's 1 million mercenary troops suffered over 2 decades of losses in the previous major war. The 3 million war machines suffered over 3 decades of losses. However, in these past few days, the 1 million mercenary troops and 3 million war machines were quickly replenished. The number of elites from Emperor Academy, such as Lan Zai and Jai Sheng, also increased. Now, the elites from Emperor Academy have formed a 500-person team, jointly commanded by Jai Sheng and Lan Zai. Furthermore, the Great Yan dynasty assembled a 1 million-strong allied cultivator army, preparing to participate in the war. The Great Yan dynasty is the Great Yan dynasty of all cultivators on this land, not the Great Yan dynasty of the Beigong imperial clan. Since the Beigong imperial clan mercilessly abandoned them, and they wished to seek new development, under such circumstances, they could only pledge allegiance to a new boss. This led to the Infinite Group's assets not only avoiding depletion after a major war, but also growing larger and larger, successfully sustaining war with war. This time, the Infinite Group's on-paper data was also terrifying. 1 Imperial rank, 5 Saint ranks, 500 Emperor Academy elites, and 5 million combat troops. As the Infinite Group's combat troops rapidly assembled, preparing for the next major war, the Tianyue Group's combat troops were also rapidly assembling. The Tianyue Group dispatched 3 Saint ranks, including Jai Yinyu, and 3.5 million combat troops. The total forces of the 2 major groups combined are 1 Imperial rank, 8 Saint ranks, plus 8.5 million combat troops. From the on-paper data, the strength of both sides is already terrifying. If the Tianyue Group exerted a little more effort, they could even bring the total combat troops to the 10 million level. However, the Tianyue Group did not continue to increase its combat troops. Instead, under Jai Yinyu's leadership, it held a pre-war conference with the Infinite Group. The meeting place for both sides was the main hall of the Great Yan dynasty's imperial palace. This place now had a long, narrow conference table and 2 rows of chairs. From the Tianyue Group, Jai Yinyu and 3 peak Saint rank cultivators from the Tianyue Group attended. From the Infinite Group, Gu Qijue and the 5 including Lai Kongwu, a total of 6 people attended. After both sides were seated, Jai Yinyu spoke first, saying, "CEO Xing, is there a slight deficiency in our top-tier combat power? According to the latest intelligence, Medicine King Valley possesses 1 Imperial rank, 5 peak Saint ranks, and 10 Saint ranks. We only have 1 Imperial rank and 8 Saint ranks. Their Saint rank combat power is almost double ours. As for other levels of combat troops, Medicine King Valley has now assembled 10 million cultivators to resist all forces attacking Medicine King Valley." After Jai Yinyu spoke, everyone's gaze turned to Gu Qijue. The comparison of forces was 8.5 million against 10 million. From the on-paper data, the disparity in forces was not very large. In a war of this scale, an additional 1.5 million combat units would not be enough to secure victory. However, Medicine King Valley's foundation was mainly reflected in its top-tier combat power. They actually possessed 1 Imperial rank, 5 peak Saint ranks, and 10 Saint ranks at 5th stage or above, which was truly terrifying. This time, Gu Qijue did not answer immediately. After some thought, he said, "Medicine King Valley's top-tier combat power, from the on-paper data, possesses an absolute advantage. However, our advantage lies in the empowerment of Infinite Group's technology. Under the empowerment of Infinite Group's technology, our top-tier combat power far surpasses the Saint ranks of the Tianheng domain in combat capability. Of course, to be safe, I can help 4 more peak half-saints on both sides advance to Saint rank and participate in this battle." As he spoke, terrifying power surged throughout his body, condensing 4 exquisite demon power crystals that floated before him. As long as one has sufficient foundation and good aptitude, after thoroughly refining a demon power crystal, one can break through to the saint rank. Seeing this, Gu Qijue was overjoyed and immediately stated, regardless of whether the Tianyue group's half-saints advance or not, the Tianyue group is willing to dispatch 2 more saint ranks to participate in the battle. Gu Qijue nodded slightly, then looked at Lai Kangwu. Which 2 of the infinite group's peak half-saints are suitable to assault the saint rank? Lai Kangwu immediately replied seriously. The most suitable to assault the saint rank are Silver Wing and Moon Pupil. After speaking, Lai Kangwu added, Sidu Nan, who recently pledged allegiance to the CEO, is infinitely close to the saint rank. If Sidu Nan is also included, then Sidu Nan and Silver Wing are the most suitable to assault the saint rank. Gu Qijue shook his head. For now, there's no need to include Sidu Nan. Unless he volunteers, these 2 demon power crystals will be used by Silver Wing and Moon Pupil. 3 days from now, the Infinite Group and Tianyue Group's participating forces will assemble 100 li outside Medicine King Valley. Preparing to attack Medicine King Valley? Gu Qijue nodded. The Tianyue Group has no problems. We wish us an early victory in the war. Gu Qijue said indifferently, Of course. Victory belongs to us. The pre-war conference concluded here. Gu Qijue took away 2 precious demon power crystals to help the Tianyue group's peak half-saints achieve a breakthrough. Lai Kangwu also took 2 demon power crystals and summoned Silver Wing and Moon Pupil from the Infinite Mercenary Group. These 2 were powerhouses cultivated by the Infinite Group itself. And under the massive resources of the Infinite Group, they grew very rapidly. They certainly lived up to the resources the Infinite Group spent on them, both having reached the strength of a peak half-saint. They were only a final, elusive step away from becoming a saint rank. Their chance to take that final step had now arrived. Silver Wing is a Yao race member with a pair of silver wings behind him. His appearance is no different from a human's, except for the extra pair of silver wings behind him. His most skilled ability is speed, having once escaped completely unharmed from the pursuit of 2 saint rank powerhouses. Relying on his terrifying speed, Moon Pupil is also a Yao race member, whose true form is a celestial demon cat. Her appearance is also human-like, but her pupils are 2 blood moons. 97, the arrogant Kujun opposite Lai Kangwu. Silver Wing and Moon Pupil both displayed expressions of unconcealed excitement. The quasi-saint rank was indeed only the final step away from the saint rank. But who knew when that final step could actually be taken? With the demon power crystal, the situation immediately changed. Silver Wing and Moon Pupil were among the most outstanding individuals within Infinite Group's millions of mercenaries. Given their aptitude and foundation, with the help of the demon power crystal, they had a high chance of stepping into the saint rank. Lai Kangwu handed the demon power crystal to Silver Wing and Moon Pupil, saying at the same time, You 2 are elites cultivated by Infinite Group itself, and even the best among the elites of your generation. I hope the 2 of you do not disappoint Your Excellency Xing Ju this time. Upon hearing this, Silver Wing and Moon Pupil bowed. We definitely will not disappoint Your Excellency Xing Ju, Lai Kangwu nodded. Go into seclusion now and break through your rank. As you command, the 2 finished speaking and left together. In this final period, other members of Infinite Group, including Gu Qijue, were all making their final advancements. Unlike the Great Yan dynasty, the Medicine King Valley was one of the top powers in the Tianheng domain. Although they maintained a low profile, they were deeply entrenched. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to protect such a vast foundation. Other groups on Emperor Star, when encountering powers similar to the Medicine King Valley, all met with extremely stubborn resistance. In the early stage, the major groups on Emperor Star relied on technological advantages, often achieving overwhelming victories on many battlefields. But after the weaker forces were mostly eliminated, the remaining powers were clearly all tough opponents. During this final period, good news came from both Infinite Group and Tianyue Group. The 2 half-saints of Tianyue Group successfully advanced to the saint rank with the help of the demon power crystal provided by Gu Qijue. On the Infinite Group side, Silver Wing and Moon Pupil, who originated from Infinite Group's elite mercenary force of millions, also advanced to the saint rank after using the demon power crystal. Not only that, but Gu Qijue, who was only a hair's breadth away from the imperial rank, also successfully stepped into the imperial rank. This meant that Infinite Group's combat force consisted of 1 imperial rank, 7 saint ranks, millions of elite mercenaries, 3 million war machines, and 1 million Great Yan Dynasty cultivator soldiers. In addition, there were over 500 prodigies from Emperor Academy, namely Lan Zai, Jai Shang, and others. Tianyue Group, on the other hand, had 5 saint ranks plus 3.5 million combat troops. When the agreed-upon time arrived, the combat forces of Infinite Group and Tianyue Group began to assemble at the previously designated location. As one of the top major powers in the Tianheng domain, the Medicine King Valley paid close attention to the situations on various battlefields across the domain, while other forces in the Tianheng domain were fighting fiercely against the outsiders. They prepared themselves to deal with foreign enemies. The imperial rank old ancestor of the Medicine King Valley had emerged from seclusion, and among their 5 peak saint ranks, one had recently reached the half-emperor level. Furthermore, there were 10 more saint ranks, along with 10 million cultivator soldiers standing ready to grind all invading enemies into dust. 10,000 miles outside the Medicine King Valley lay a barren plain. The terrain here was open. The ground was desolate, and there were no resources nearby. Rumble, Infinite Group's combat forces, and Tianyue Group's combat forces quickly appeared in this location. They did not assemble directly on the border of the Medicine King Valley, showing due respect to this powerful adversary. After all, the Medicine King Valley was one of the top major powers in the Tianheng domain. Anyone who underestimated them would surely suffer losses in the end. Not long after Infinite Group's army of over 5 million and Tianyue Group's army of 3.5 million appeared here. Sure enough, the Medicine King Valley immediately reacted. Inside the Medicine King Valley, various floating spirit ships continuously soared into the sky. The 10 million cultivator soldiers, who had long been standing ready and poised for action, immediately boarded the ships. There was, of course, a reason why they chose to take floating battleships to the battlefield instead of directly transforming into rainbows and tearing through space to reach it. Once they arrived at the battlefield, they would engage in a desperate fight with the combat forces of Infinite Group and Tianyue Group. Under such circumstances, if they flew all the way to the battlefield, wouldn't they be caught off guard by the combat forces of Infinite Group and Tianyue Group, who would be waiting rested? After all, the journey was over 10,000 miles. Except for a very few experts who completely disregarded the consumption of spiritual power, all other cultivators, without exception, took floating battleships to the battlefield. The boundless plain became bustling due to the arrival of the combat forces from both Infinite Group and Tianyue Group. And after the massive army of cultivators from the Medicine King Valley grandly appeared here, the air was instantly filled with a murderous aura. On the Medicine King Valley's side, the imperial rank old ancestor did not show up. It was unknown what considerations the other party had in mind. Since the emperor rank expert of the Medicine King Valley did not show up, Gu Qijue, on Infinite Group's side, naturally would not reveal himself either. As time passed, the combat forces of both sides gradually arrayed themselves. Leading the Medicine King Valley forces was 1 half-emperor and 4 peak saint ranks. Behind these 4 peak saint rank cultivators were 10 more cultivators above the 5th level of the saint rank. Further back was the overwhelming, dense mass of 10 million cultivator soldiers. After both sides gradually arrayed themselves, the half-emperor of the Medicine King Valley approached a spot not far from Infinite Group and Tianyue Group. His indifferent voice echoed throughout the heavens and earth. "Commander of the outsiders, step forward and speak." Even without the half-emperor of the Medicine King Valley speaking, Lai Kongwu intended to step forward. Once the opponent spoke, Lai Kongwu took a step forward and asked with a voice full of coldness, "What is it?" The half-emperor on the Medicine King Valley's side was named Gu Qijue. When Gu Qijue saw that Lai Kongwu was not an emperor rank expert, nor even a half-step imperial rank, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He immediately shook his head and said, "I won't waste words with you. Have your emperor rank expert come out and speak. You don't have the qualifications to speak with this cultivator." Lai Kongwu's expression remained unchanged, and he spoke with extreme indifference. "Your Excellency is not worthy of an audience with our coalition's emperor rank expert." Gu Qijue said Lai Kongwu was unqualified to speak with him, and Lai Kongwu clearly did not show weakness, directly stating that Gu Qijue was unworthy to meet Gu Qijue. Gu Qijue was not angered after hearing Lai Kongwu's words, because Lai Kongwu was not a half-step imperial rank, nor was he above the 5th level of the saint rank. With such meager power, even if Lai Kongwu was the commander of the coalition army, he was nothing more than a clown before Gu Qijue. Facing a clown, No matter how much they provoked him, he naturally wouldn't get angry. However, not being angry did not mean Gu Qijue wouldn't take corresponding punitive measures against Lai Kangwu. He sneered and said to Lai Kangwu, "Remember this, the one who kills you is Gu Qijue. I guarantee you will die a very ugly death." After Gu Qijue finished speaking, he immediately made a move. And the great battle between the two sides was instantly triggered. 98. A battle between evenly matched opponents. A close and difficult contest. Kill all outsiders. Let them know the might of Medicine King Valley. The cultivator army of Medicine King Valley erupted in roars. They had a full 10 million cultivators, while the Infinite Group and Tianyue Group combined only had a little over 8.5 million. In terms of numbers, they had a troop advantage of 1.5 million. In terms of high-level combat power, they had 1 emperor, 1 quasi-emperor, 4 peak saint rank, and 10 or more at saint rank 5th stage. The Infinite Group and Tianyue Group combined currently only had 6 or more at saint rank 5th stage, and another 6 below saint rank 5th stage. Altogether, there were only 12 saint rank combatants. Medicine King Valley, on the other hand, had 1 quasi-emperor and 14 saint rank cultivators. It could be said that as soon as this battle began, the Infinite Group and Tianyue Group had already lost half the fight. Facing the charge of the Medicine King Valley Cultivator Army, the Infinite Group allied forces and Tianyue Group were not afraid. Especially the Infinite Group. Their morale was soaring. Their previous battle with the Great Yan Dynasty was a continuous, crushing victory. Under such circumstances, they naturally had no fear of Medicine King Valley. As the Medicine King Valley Cultivator Army drew closer, the combat units of the Infinite Group and Tianyue Group also let out earth-shattering roars. Kill, 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 after shouts of killing rang out. A large number of portable missiles whistled towards the cultivators of Medicine King Valley. Compared to most spirit spells and divine abilities, missiles and laser cannons clearly had an advantage. Among the Medicine King Valley Cultivator Army, some cultivators simply didn't have spells with sufficient range to hit the Infinite Group and Tianyue Group's combat units from a distance. On the Infinite Group allied forces side, missiles directly impacted faces, and laser cannons unleashed terrifying lasers that pierced through the battlefield. Fortunately, the various forces of Tianheng Domain and Emperor Star had been clashing for some time. Medicine King Valley also had some understanding of the technological weapons of Emperor Star's forces. They knew that these were very powerful external objects. In the eyes of Medicine King Valley cultivators, no matter how strong external objects were, they weren't one's true strength and thus were insignificant. But it was precisely these insignificant external objects, these insignificant technological weapons, that made the Medicine King Valley cultivators pay the price for their arrogance. Of course, for Medicine King Valley to have developed to such a vast extent, naturally, there were more intelligent people than foolish ones in Medicine King Valley. Upon discovering the formidable technological weapons of the Infinite Group allied forces, Gu Qijue's voice echoed throughout the battlefield. Formations. Advance. His command was very simple, and he used a method of combat relatively unfamiliar to the Infinite Group allied forces. Previously, the cultivators of Medicine King Valley were a disorganized rabble, but after Gu Qijue gave the order, their formidable qualities became apparent. Behind the Infinite Group army, Gu Qijue saw that the Medicine King Valley cultivators had formed a large number of battle formations. These cultivators began forming battle formations in groups of around 10,000. The smallest number was 10,000 per formation, while larger ones had 50,000 or 100,000 per battle formation. After forming battle formations, these Medicine King Valley cultivators were no longer scattered individuals, but used the spiritual power of the masses, condensed through the battle formations. When a large number of missiles and laser cannons roared towards Medicine King Valley's battle formations, they were completely blocked by the formation barriers condensed by the Medicine King Valley cultivator battle formations. No matter how many missiles came, how many laser attacks whistled in. For a moment, they couldn't penetrate the battle formations of the Medicine King Valley cultivator army. Medicine King Valley was more powerful than the Great Yan Dynasty, and there was clearly a reason for it. Among the Infinite Group allied forces, there were also 1 million cultivators from the Great Yan Dynasty. These cultivators would not use such battle formations. Due to the existence of the battle formations, the great battle between the two sides also became extremely tense. Gu Qijue observed the situation across the battlefield, his expression showing no reaction. because the great battle between the Infinite Group allied forces and Medicine King Valley's 10 million cultivator army was still in a stalemate. Medicine King Valley's battle formations were, of course, extremely formidable, but the drawback of battle formations was their lack of flexibility. After suffering some losses in close-quarters combat, the Infinite Group allied forces adopted a hit-and-run strategy. Jai Shang, Lanzai, and others continuously harassed Medicine King Valley's battle formations from a safe, not too far, not too close distance. These battle formations were terrifying in a head-on collision between two armies, but encountering the Infinite Group allied forces, they could only consider themselves unlucky, because the Infinite Group allied forces' combat style did not involve forming battle formations for charges. This made the Medicine King Valley cultivator army's extremely terrifying punch land directly on cotton. During the engagement, it was clearly a state of having strength but nowhere to use it. Boom, boom, boom. The Infinite Group allied forces missiles and a large number of laser cannons, as if free, launched a saturation attack on the Medicine King Valley cultivator army, but it was useless. Buzz, the battle formations formed by the Medicine King Valley cultivator army instantly manifested formation barriers. No matter how many missiles bombarded them, how many laser cannons whistled in, they couldn't directly blast open this hard turtle shell. However, Medicine King Valley cultivators' battle formations also couldn't pose too much of a threat to the Infinite Group allied forces. When the Infinite Group allied forces charged, they immediately scattered, appearing everywhere, in the sky and on the ground. Each fierce charge initiated by the Medicine King Valley cultivator army caused very limited casualties. Before the Infinite Group allied forces and Medicine King Valley's cultivator battle formations could continue to maneuver, Gu Qijue's voice echoed throughout the battlefield. Concentrate forces to eliminate cultivators who cannot form battle formations. Those involved are confused. While bystanders see clearly, Gu Qijue's reminder was crucial. The Infinite Group allied forces possessed incredible mobility. Medicine King Valley's cultivator battle formations, while powerful in offense and incredibly formidable in defense, lacked flexibility. If the Infinite Group allied forces simply avoided direct confrontation and engaged in guerrilla warfare, Medicine King Valley would be utterly helpless. Not only that, after Gu Qijue's reminder, the cultivators in the Medicine King Valley army who couldn't form battle formations suffered greatly at this moment. Medicine King Valley's imperial rank Old Ancestor also issued a decree at this time. Cultivators unable to form battle formations, move closer to the various battle formations. If you encounter danger, you can enter the formation array for protection. Medicine King Valley, as one of the top powers in Tianheng Domain, lived up to its reputation with its formidable strength and swift reaction. In their engagement with the Infinite Group allied forces, they were actually adapting to every move, with both sides exchanging blows. Although the Medicine King Valley cultivator army was extremely powerful, Gu Qijue had no intention of entering the battle yet. Currently, the two warring sides were still in a stalemate. However, maintaining the battle formations required the Medicine King Valley cultivator army to consume spiritual qi. Being in a stalemate was clearly very disadvantageous for them. One more chapter. I'm writing it, 99. A battle between Emperor-level beings shaking the heavens and the earth. For the Infinite Group and Tianyue Group allied forces, the Medicine King Valley was definitely a worthy opponent. Whether it was the battlefield for high-end combatants or the battlefield for conventional forces, the Medicine King Valley displayed stronger performance than the Great Yan Dynasty. Across various battlefields, the Medicine King Valley's cultivator army could fight the Infinite Group allied forces to a standstill. They continuously maintained the cultivator battle formation. Although this consumed a massive amount of spiritual energy, the Infinite Group allied forces couldn't break through this tortoise shell anytime soon. However, the Old Ancestor of the Medicine King Valley clearly saw this drawback. When faced with this situation, there were only two solutions. One was to have the Medicine King Valley's cultivator army disperse the battle formation at this time. Otherwise, if they continued to maintain the cultivator battle formation, the Medicine King Valley's cultivator army would definitely be the first to collapse. The other choice was to quickly end this battle. As long as they could quickly end the battle, they naturally wouldn't suffer massive spiritual energy consumption due to the war dragging on for too long. Thinking of this, the Medicine King Valley Old Ancestor, Medicine Emperor, chose to directly enter the fray and participate in the battle. Boom! A terrifying aura that shook heaven and earth suddenly spread out at this moment. When this terrifying aura suddenly appeared, the Infinite Group allied forces experienced a brief moment of panic. The pressure exerted by an Emperor rank expert shook heaven and earth, terrifying to the extreme. Fortunately, their panic didn't last long, and they quickly returned to normal, because right at that moment, a terrifying Imperial rank pressure also abruptly appeared from the rear of the Infinite Group allied forces. Boom! An extremely fierce and domineering aura suddenly emerged. Immediately afterward, Gu Qijue's figure appeared directly opposite the Medicine Emperor. The Medicine Emperor had an aged face and white hair, wore a dark green cloak, and his entire body emitted an extremely majestic aura. Beside him, a mass of azure flames floated, and the might of those flames was incredible. Around the flames, the space was continuously warping, scorched by its terrifying high temperature. After the Medicine Emperor appeared, the morale of the Medicine King Valley's cultivator army greatly soared. However, the Infinite Group allied forces were not intimidated. The terrifying aura displayed by Gu Qijue was only stronger than, not weaker than, the Medicine Emperors. This allowed them to still possess enough confidence to engage in battle with the Medicine King Valley's cultivator army. Above the firmament, the Medicine Emperor was not in a hurry to make a move. His sudden appearance was merely to test the capabilities of the Infinite Group's experts. Now, he had seen that these outsiders were definitely not as weak as they had initially imagined. Not only did the opponents possess extremely formidable technological weapons, but their individual combat power was also incredibly strong. By relying on the Azure Dawn Heavenly Divine Fire, he was confident he could suppress or even subdue Gu Qijue. However, doing so would require him to pay a price. So the Medicine Emperor began weighing the pros and cons. The best military strategy is to attack the enemy's plans, followed by attacking their alliances, and lastly, attacking their cities. Fighting a bloody battle directly with Gu Qijue was not a wise move. If he were injured, others might reap the benefits. The best method was to make Gu Qijue retreat without a fight, or to divert the calamity elsewhere. If that failed, he could cede some benefits to stabilize Gu Qijue first. After a moment of thought, the Medicine Emperor said, "Where does your esteemed self come from? Why attack my Medicine King Valley?" Since the Medicine Emperor didn't make a move, Gu Qijue was also not anxious. The longer the delay, the greater the consumption of the Medicine King Valley's cultivator army, which was increasingly beneficial to the Infinite Group allied forces. After the Medicine Emperor asked, Gu Qijue said indifferently, "The strong prey on the weak, it is the natural law, why ask more?" The Medicine Emperor nodded, "The survival of the fittest. These words are certainly true, but why does your esteemed self believe the Medicine King Valley is the weak party?" Gu Qijue laughed. "If the Medicine King Valley possessed sufficient strength, your excellency would likely not be talking so much to me, but would have attacked directly." After he exposed the Medicine Emperor's thoughts with a single sentence, the Medicine Emperor fell slightly silent. The Medicine Emperor looked at Gu Qijue with increased seriousness. Powerful enemies were indeed terrifying, but even more terrifying were powerful enemies who also possessed extremely high intelligence. In the Medicine Emperor's view, Gu Qijue, the leader of the Infinite Group allied forces, was undoubtedly the latter, which forced him to treat Gu Qijue with greater importance. After a moment of silence, the Medicine Emperor spoke. "The Azure Dawn Heavenly Divine Fire beside me once incinerated an Imperial rank expert. Although fully activating the Divine Fire results in significant consumption for the Divine Fire itself and for this old man. But does your esteemed self insist on fighting until both sides are destroyed?" Gu Qijue shook his head. "Your excellency underestimates me and the Infinite Group allied forces, while overestimating your side. On the conventional battlefield, both sides appear to be evenly matched, but the reality is clear to both of us. The longer the time drags on, the more advantageous it is for my side, and the more disadvantageous for yours. We might even say that on the conventional battlefield, your side's defeat is already certain. On the Saint rank battlefield, the 12 Saint rank experts of the Infinite Group allied forces are facing your side's 14 Saint rank experts and 1 quasi-emperor. Our side is fighting with fewer numbers against higher realms, yet both sides remain deadlocked. This shows the immense strength of the Infinite Group allied forces. If there is even a slight mistake from your Saint rank experts, or if I suddenly launch an attack and kill 1 Saint rank expert, this balance will be completely shattered." As soon as Gu Qijue uttered these words, the Medicine Emperor's expression instantly became extremely solemn. He knew that everything Gu Qijue said was true, and he had always worried that Gu Qijue would do exactly that. However, he had still underestimated Gu Qijue. Gu Qijue had no intention of picking on the weak. His goal was to suppress the Medicine Emperor. As long as the Medicine Emperor was dealt with, this great war could end. But the Medicine Emperor was not a soft target either. He had previously used the Azure Dawn Heavenly Divine Fire to directly kill an Imperial rank expert. The Medicine Emperor sighed lightly and said, "So, there's nothing left to discuss?" Gu Qijue did not answer the question but instead said, "Please enlighten me." The Medicine Emperor nodded slightly, then drew a flame-wrapped copper mace from the Azure Dawn Heavenly Divine Fire. Having decided to act, the Medicine Emperor showed no further hesitation and immediately launched a sudden attack. Swish! With a swing of the copper mace in his hand, a terrifying azure flame blade radiance tore through the air and struck. This flame blade radiance possessed extremely terrifying high temperatures and extremely dreadful divine might. Wherever the flame blade radiance passed, the surrounding space continuously twisted and deformed, rippling outward. Facing the Medicine Emperor's strike, Gu Qijue was wreathed in lightning and punched out. This punch shook heaven and earth, shattering the cosmos. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into a dragon, opening up the sky with a single punch. Boom, rumble, boom, boom. The might of this punch exceeded the Medicine Emperor's imagination, and even surprised Gu Qijue himself somewhat. The legacy of the 9 ancestors of the Blood Dragon had kept him in a state of accumulating strength for a massive eruption. The higher his rank, the stronger his power became. After stepping into the Imperial rank, his full-force punch exhibited might even greater than the Medicine Emperor's. The Thunder Fist aura continuously tearing through the air suddenly collided violently with the flame blade radiance. Boom! Suddenly, the entire heaven and earth seemed to be violently shaking. An Imperial rank war was terrifying indeed. Finished writing, clocking out, asking for monthly votes. 100 Thunder Armor. Thunder Blade. If Gu Qijue and the Medicine Emperor didn't fight, so be it, but once they did, it was an earth-shattering battle. Compared to the battlefield where these two fought, the battlefields of the other Saint rank experts paled in comparison at this moment. After the two began fighting, the terrifying combat power they possessed as Emperor rank experts was fully displayed at this moment. Since Gu Qijue entered the Imperial rank, he had never fought against other Emperor rank experts. Facing the Medicine Emperor of Medicine King Valley this time, he was extremely cautious. Although the Medicine Emperor had previously killed an Imperial rank, the Imperial ranks he killed were all newly advanced Imperial ranks who lacked experience fighting Emperor rank experts. Otherwise, the Medicine Emperor clearly wouldn't have been able to kill them so easily. Although Gu Qijue was also a newly advanced Imperial rank, his situation was different from other newly advanced Imperial rank experts. Since the start of the apocalypse, he had fought through life and death battles, step by step, all the way until today. Under these circumstances, his combat experience was already extremely rich. Not only that, but he also obtained the legacy of the 9 ancestors of the Blood Dragon. The 9 ancestors of the Blood Dragon were all ruthless individuals who had caused rivers of blood. After obtaining their legacy, Gu Qijue had no shortage of combat experience. Furthermore, he had absolutely no intention of underestimating the Medicine Emperor when they started fighting this time, which put significant